match your lot lines. So it doesn't really fit the qualifications of a lot line, but if it's the qualifications of a minor subdivision, fine, if it was recategorized as a minor subdivision.
So here's a question in that same topic. Why not just add a 50-foot right of way to his current deed on Crum Road and not even come to us?
Well, I guess that's an option.
You're right.
You said
Exactly.
easement, dude.
Are you gonna actually
This
make it a
is not
driveway
easy.
and then not use Dunn Farm Road?
No, this would be, if there's ever an agricultural operation, the access would come.
This
from
would be
road.
a flag. It would be
It would be a flag.
attached to the large
But
lot.
then just have it, I mean, the question, I guess, is for Mary Lou. Mary Lou, would you just add a 50-foot right of way to the deed that he has on Crum Road?
Yeah, I mean,
And just so that
they
he
could
has
just
access?
do an right,
Right,
they
then you
could
don't
do
need
that.
us, you don't need to go through the process, I guess.
Well, then that's fantastic.
Then you don't have to go through the whole subdivision. I think, you don't have to go
Yeah,
through the whole
So then
subdivision
that-
process.
so then this is a transaction between me and the real estate
You
broker?
and the, no, you and the
You.
attorney and the county
It's
to
your
file a
property,
clerk.
it's your property. You could create a 50-foot right of way.
Right.
Just have your attorney draw it
You're
up.
gonna ultimately rewrite the Crum Road deed
Right.
to add a 50-foot right of way that gives them access to the
Yeah, I
Dunn
mean,
Farm
right,
property.
that's all you
You
have
don't
to
need
do
us.
is do a deed of easement,
So.
And you
Even if you
have
sell that
the-
property on Crum Road. it's-
because you have had this map done, you have
Right.
the description. Right, or
Mhm.
You know,
the surveyor can give you the description and I talked to the attorney and they can,
So,
the
all right,
deed.
so that, so,
you don't have to give it away.
in other words, the 50-foot easement that comes from an attorney trumps the planning board? I mean,
No,
Well,
so
you don't need planning
You
board
don't need
approval
planning board
for
approval
for the
because you own the
easement.
property.
You could create an easement on that piece of property that you're renting. right
That doesn't
now.
require planning
You
board
don't need the
approval.
planning board.
If you were to sell the Crum Road property, that
Doesn't
50-foot easement will go with
Go
the sale of
of
that.
the property.
So
Right.
when whoever buys that knows that that 50 feet of that property is, they own it, but it's your access. You can use it.
So they have to go in eyes wide open if they buy it. Their
Mhm.
lawyers will look at it and say, oh, yeah,
Why
we got an
wouldn't they?
easement from this part and.
You don't need us.
because I was ready
It
to
was
show
nice
you
meeting you.
contour lines and
No.
everything, because it's, there's
No,
no
you don't need
wetland.
it.
Thank
You don't
you
need
for,
us.
I should get that.
Rob, anytime you need legal
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah.
Thank you, I mean,
We like to render ourselves obsolete as often as possible.
well then,
Save you some time, I think.
and save you some paperwork too, right? I mean, awesome.
Great.
All right,
Hold the
thank
hot glass of wine.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, number next.
Number next.
I like it.
Okay, Kyle Courtright. Kyle Courtright here. Have a map for this? Hold the map up here.
I got a degree in folding
I
that.
was just gonna say the same.
There we go.
somewhere.
We're basically combining. two.
Just, we can't have one, so.
Anybody want to pick copies?
The hardest working person. Yeah, because every morning that I drive by, work to be done on that property, I'm like.
Right.
"Oh,
So, this is
Stop
my,
doing.
this is an application for a lot line adjustment, which we won't be able to do with a right of way. like we did in the last one, so there's no- So what we have here, if you take a look at the maps, what we have here
One
is,
is Doreen spreading.
we have a piece of property off of, what is it, Upper Cherrytown?
No, it's on Cherrytown.
Cherrytown, sorry. And currently there are there are two lot lines, and the applicant proposes to eliminate those two lot lines and to make it one large lot. Is that essentially it? So we're going from,
Yep.
I don't have the exact
Going from
acreage.
3 down to 1.
There you go, 3 lots into one. So this is, you have the material from the CEO, that was how it was categorized as a lot line. Let's go the other way. Sam, would you like to make any comments about this?
No, I guess the only thing is curiosity about the intent, like, is this gonna come back as a new subdivision later, or it's just you're trying to consolidate lots?
Yep, just I'm planning on building a house there. The one lot line is kind of close and also just involve all 3 of them for privacy, so I don't
Great.
intend to subdivide it again.
Cool.
You're gonna try to keep the stone fences,
Yep.
stone walls. all that
Definitely.
good stuff. Anne Marie, do you have any comments?
No, I think it looks cool. So.
There you go. Cool. Zorian?
No, I don't have.
Nothing. Mark?
I do not have anything.
Maren?
Nope, but I need to come work on my property every morning instead of his property.
So you're okay with it?
Yes.
Patrick? No. Okay. So Madam Attorney, this is cut and dry. There is a decision already in your package. Now, let me just,
A certification.
thank you, certification. So if you turn 3 or 4 pages to the end, there's a certification. Let me just explain why some of the nuances of what the state decided to do with the new statute. In fact, I'm going to let the attorney address it. I'm liable to make a crack and get in trouble about.
Oh, okay, you're talking about public meetings. then.
Yes.
I'm like, what we change with lot line adjustment at the state level? I'll take this off so people can
Okay,
hear me.
but it affects this particular.
Well, anytime you're gonna have a motion or a resolution, the state now requires that you put it on the website 24 hours in advance of the meeting. So this one doesn't require a public hearing. So one is drafted, it was on the website 24 hours in advance. So you can make this certification if you so desire.
Right.
You don't have to if you feel you need to do other things. But we may have, where we used to sometimes have a public hearing and we were pretty sure we'd be ready to go. You don't really know until you hear the public. So on most things other than these lot certifications, we're probably gonna have to use our,
Another meeting.
Slip it to
use
another
another
meeting.
meeting so that we can draft a decision and get
That's-
it on the website 24 hours in advance, but not for you.
So that's the case. You'll see with the 2 public hearings that are on the agenda for tonight, the the other Courtright one, and Salisbury. We have to wait until the December meeting, assuming there aren't any major
Right,
problems.
if you close the public
If we
hearing
close the
today.
public
Mayor,
hearing.
so potentially could be second public hearing, essentially, when it's posted on the website. What is the purpose?
No.
What is the purpose of posting? on
The
website?
purpose is you can't write a decision until after the public hearing because you don't know what people are going to say. And then when you do have a decision to
Right.
consider, that decision has to be on the website 24 hours before the meeting.
For the
So
purpose-
therefore, you
For
can't.
for the purpose, just to inform the public? or-
Yes,
or to-
yep, that's
that's
a rule
just-
that the state of New York made. They used to say, put it on as soon as possible, and if you didn't have anything, you could make it up that night. Now they'd like resolutions to be on 24 hours in advance.
So
So
they
Not
will
they'd
be
like.
attached
They
to
insist.
to the agenda that gets posted prior to the meeting. They'll be attached to that. Thanks. Thanks, guys.
It's
Can I
because we
get the
love
Super
you.
Bowl winner 24 hours in advance?
Yeah.
So-
That would
Bet
be-
on it?
So on
no
this,
comments about another statute that'll make things last a little longer. It is what it is. So we just have to follow what the rule is. So the certification decision is there. Is everybody comfortable going forward with the
Yes.
certification?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
fine. So I will read it. This is a lot improvement certification pursuant to chapter 125 and chapter 140 of the Code of the Town of Rochester. The applicant is Kyle Courtright, owner is also Kyle Courtright. The reason for the request, applicant proposes a lot line deletion to combine 1, 2, 3 parcels into one parcel that will total 21.692 acres. Parcels are located in the AR3 zoning district at 633 Cherrytown Road in Cohasset. And I'm going to fast forward to the certification note. The planning board has reviewed the plat and certifies the lot improvement proposed will meet the town of Rochester lot requirements for the AR3 zoning districts and for recording purposes only, further represents an exempt lot improvement in accordance with section 125-18 of the town of Rochester subdivision regulations. No subdivision approval is required or given by the planning board. The planning board further grants the authority to the chairman to sign the plat certifying the lot improvement for filing purposes without further resolution upon receipt and the chairman's determination that such plat meets the requirements of the code and is in agreement with the sketch plan provided for review. Plat shall be prepared by a licensed land surveyor, which you did already, or professional engineer to describe the conveyances involved by meets and bounds, and shall include the town of Rochester lot line note, which I assume it does already. If it doesn't, before I sign it, we'll have to have this note on it. The note should say, these plans are acknowledged by the town of Rochester and for recording purposes only to represent an exempt lot improvement in accordance with section 125(18) of the town of Rochester subdivision regulations. No subdivision approval is required or given. Lot improvement parcel shall not be considered a separate building lot apart from the tract to which it is being added. The owner shall file in the office of the Ulster County Clerk such certified plat bearing the chairman's signature within 62 days of the certification. The owner shall have the responsibility to return 4 of those copies, certified copies, from the county clerk of that plat to the town of Rochester Planning Board within 30 days of filing.
And that note is on the map.
And do I need a vote
Yes,
of the, just checking,
yeah,
okay.
always a good idea.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Dickens are terms.
I motion in a second before that vote.
You need that too.
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the lot line certification.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Second by Mark, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? You're done?
All right, thank you.
And
Thank you.
I will sign the map, assuming you can call the office. I'll take a look at the map. If everything is hunky-dory, I'll sign it. You can pick it up and then get it certified up at the county clerk.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to sign it right now.
Well, he's gonna need his Mylar, right?
He's going to need my
He's gonna
laws.
need his Mylar.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
All right, I'll sign it
he has to bring it in.
tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll follow up.
Do you have the Mylar? No, yeah, she'll call you when she has it.
Yes.
Good, thank you. Okay, the next one, Chromestone. Yeah, just wrap those down. So, people involved in Chromestone, please approach the bench.
The bench.
The bench. Do we have Chromestone? We have some maps for you. Are you waiting for a map?
The look on your face. It's like, wait, what's going on here? What's happening?
And down there, one down there. You have another one?
I have a bunch.
We have another one.
Everybody can have one.
Good evening, Heather.
Good evening.
And
Kevin Meehan.
Ian,
Yes,
you're with,
I'm part of Chromestone. My wife and I have Chromestone, the LLC.
okay, so you're the owner?
Yes,
So you're the owner of the current property?
yes, I am.
So at our last meeting, we looked at this. It was submitted to us by Medenbach and Eggers as a subdivision, minor subdivision. There was discussion at about 10:30 at night about a different way of doing this. And it was suggested that it be a natural subdivision and then a lot line adjustment. I'll be perfectly honest, and I wrote it up and I sent everybody notes about it. It seemed to make sense to me in the ensuing days after we made that 10:30 decision. But I am still confused. And I guess the question for, unless somebody else understands it, the question for our attorney is, essentially, as I understand it, the suggestion was to take the natural subdivision line and literally flip it down and presto zingo, make the subdivision line.
I don't
into a
think that
lot
was
line.
our
That's not-
intention at all.
So you'll have to.
Our
explain what
intention
we wrote.
was to make it easier, and not have to go through a public hearing. You would do 2 separate things. First, the natural, right, 2 applications. First, the natural subdivision, which would go right along Upper Whitfield Road. Okay, and then you would have a second one that's a lot line adjustment to make this section
Bigger.
on the one side of Whitfield Road adjoin with the other side, and the lot line adjustment would be down along here.
So we're
That's
creating.
how
a
I
lot
saw
line.
it.
Right.
Okay,
But
but this map
The
doesn't do
map
that.
doesn't
This
do
map,
that, so that's. what
Well,
we're
no,
hung
this is
up.
like the final project, so that would, this is what it would look like ultimately.
But we can't.
right, but we
need to-
don't have
do
a
it.
map
That
that we
was
can
my
approve.
question. Do we need to do this as 2
Yes.
distinct
application 1 is a natural subdivision, then once it's approved and completed, then application 2 is a lot line
Exactly.
improvement.
But I have a question, isn't already divided on the map, on county map, on two different
No,
lots?
No.
it is
No.
one
No,
big
it's
lot.
one big
It's all one big lot.
Big lot.
So it's
Yeah, if you
two
look at the
individual
SBL
meetings.
number, it's all one SBL.
So this is
number.
how it
This
will
was
look
mine.
at the end, but we need
So
the
it's-
two
it's-
That's
applications
what
to
kind
get
of what
there.
I was wondering, if like, when I was sending the applications, this all we need to
That's what's confusing
do?
because
It is.
Yeah.
But so
Okay.
that's why I'm going to write it down and get.
Yeah, and I
just-
wasn't,
yeah.
yeah, I
To
was
like say,
some
do
Friday.
exactly, as Mark said it perfectly, you do
This one first.
this one first,
Complete it.
complete it. Next
And
month
that's
after that,
one
you
lot.
swing that line over and it becomes a lot line and then.
No
Right,
public
so
hearing.
it can be
Can't we
done that way
just
with,
say that we did that and here we are now with this map
No,
showing?
no,
all
because
of
we
this?
can't, you have to,
we have to actually
You actually have to
Application.
approve.
right, because we
Right.
have
Do
to
I
have
need to
two,
file the map as an
Yeah.
actual subdivision?
yes.
Oh, so that's gonna be,
So at this point, you may want to withdraw the natural subdivision, keep the minor subdivision application that you never withdrew, that's already in.
right, I was about to say, I don't think we even got that far.
Right, I don't think
Yeah.
you ever withdrew it. You did put in a natural
Yeah.
subdivision application, I believe.
Mhm.
So maybe the thing to do is withdraw the natural subdivision, keep the minor subdivision application that you already have. And you could probably set it for public hearing for next month. You'd have to make a change to the map. Because you have in here existing line to be deleted, it won't be an existing line.
If we
If you
decide.
don't- right, if you
Just go back to what you
Yes.
did to start.
I think time frame.
I mean,
wise,
either way, you're
You're right.
talking January for an approval.
I will leave
then
it to
there's still
you.
an
How do you
extra
feel
month
about
for the
having a more
24
time
Right, well,
versus
that's
a
what we'll do
public
January,
hearing?
if you
That's
said-
basically what we're talking about here.
Um,
Probably another month, maybe
Well,
two.
the public
to do
hearing,
this
hang
as-
on a second.
And
The
paperwork.
public
as well.
hearing
And paperwork
would
seems
happen
to-
next month,
Mhm.
but then we have to wait another month because of this new state statute that says we can't do
It's
the
it's the
decision.
can't.
same amount of time if you do
It's the
the,
same.
Right, either
amount.
way, it will
Either
be
way,
a
it's the same amount
January.
of
you're
time.
avoiding a public hearing, which
Okay,
could be to your advantage. I don't know.
And but you're also
I
gonna have to
think
file
always
extra
avoiding
maps and
it.
pay
I would- I
for,
would-
you know,
I would
whatever
probably
it costs to
avoid it.
yeah,
file
there's
extra
the
maps.
mailing and, yeah,
So if you had the natural subdivision map, right, Myron, if the map was correct for the, we could have had a natural subdivision approval
Right, I
today.
was trying to, that's why this whole got hung up, because I was trying to write it, and I'm like, I can't do it, because we're trying to put in a natural subdivision, but the map I was looking at said removing it, because you had the full, everything you wanted to
the
do done
whole
already.
maneuver as
And
opposed to
so we had to-
segmentation,
Right,
yes.
we had to.
But it, yeah,
We were
but
trying
it
to make it
never
easy for you.
shows the,
Yeah.
Try.
yeah.
So I think you're better off doing the natural subdivision.
No,
And
either
then-
No,
way,
either
no,
way.
either way,
It's
either
6 of
way.
one,
At the same
half a dozen
time,
the other at this
You
point.
save some money by not going through the public hearing.
would like to avoid the public hearing.
All right, then, I will.
All
I'm
right.
sorry, I didn't hear you.
Would like to avoid the public hearing.
Okay.
All right, so
Does
you're
that mean
good.
if I get this in tomorrow, we can still, because the submission date for next month was technically today, so
If the board,
basically, I just need to remove.
Yeah, for this.
Just
If the board
work a
is
couple
okay
of
with that.
labels around.
is
It
the
was
board
sort of
okay with
awkward.
it?
Do we need to vote on it?
We don't need to vote. If we're
Okay.
okay with accepting it tomorrow,
That's fine.
I'm
Okay.
okay.
All right, so tomorrow,
Doesn't make any-
this
Let's say
will
4
come
4 o'clock
to,
Mary Lou, I have a
tomorrow.
quick
to
question.
Nicole, wait a second, as a natural subdivision, you'll put this line in. Right, you'll put this line in
So
along
I'm just
Upper
gonna treat
Whitfield.
it as a strict natural
Yes.
subdivision.
So you're gonna take that, and then you're gonna take this line out
Yes,
and
exactly.
keep this as, so
So
it will
lot
be,
one will be everything
Right,
on the,
two
the
large
west
lots,
side of,
right. And then if that is approved next month, you'll put in another
Application.
application
okay,
for a lot line adjustment. And that's when you'll draw it like this and show the dotted line in the middle of Upper Whitfield Road.
so basically
Is the
take this
line to
map
be
back out and
removed?
change the date.
Well, no, you have to put in, you have lot line to be removed, but there's no lot line there.
Do we have to, in order to file the maps, though, I need to order the certifications? It's not just gonna be a bada bing done in 2 months, ready for a lot line adjustment. Is that gonna be something that we're gonna trip over?
I,
Question on that.
Like, do we
Hey,
need recording
one
information
question
and
at a
all
time.
that stuff? And then file new deeds to create those 2 lots?
I think that if you make those changes and get us the Mylar plus the maps that night, perhaps you'd be able to,
That night being December.
yeah,
Mhm.
at the December meeting, sign them.
Yeah.
Should everything be good? So if you get them in tomorrow, we can look at them right away, make sure you have everything you need.
My question being, do they actually need to be filed with the county with deeds as two separate lots before I can go
Yes.
and
Yeah.
create a lot?
Yes.
That ain't gonna be quick. That is not gonna be 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So
That-
then do the
that's-
minor subdivision.
Let her. let
Do
her
you
make
know
a
your
decision.
neighbors? Are you
Yeah.
expecting any problems?
Mark has an idea
I
here.
have a solution. So potentially, we could approve the natural subdivision tonight with the understanding that the application's already in. She brings us the maps tomorrow. We already know what we're looking for. Now the map is corrected. We can get the maps submitted and then be back for December for the next portion.
Like contingent upon.
We know
We
the
don't
map
have-
is gonna be.
We don't have a minor subdivision.
Nope, we have a natural
No, no,
subdivision
she's saying the
application.
natural subdivision,
We have what we need
But
for
they
the
need to write
application.
something. It has to be-
that's
That's a stretch.
up to you. I mean, that would be contingent on,
Just the map being
On-
corrected?
well, it's not, it's adding a lot line, it's extending a lot line and deleting another one on this map.
So,
I don't know if it's a precedent you want to set
so it's probably back to.
for the
doing-
next person
So
who
then you wanna
just
do a
has a
minor
couple
then. We wanna do
lines
a
on
minor
it.
Then you wanna do a
subdivision.
minor.
Well,
Because that would speed up the process if we
Right.
did that, but
I don't
otherwise. the
want to
minor-
cut corners.
Yeah,
And then
I
wind
just
up-
think that's a bad precedent to set.
But we could
Following
probably,
all this?
we can,
I think the
Somewhat.
easiest
Okay.
way is the minor.
yeah, at this point, the easiest way is
But
to go
it's a
back to.
public
the-
hearing.
No, I'm sorry, going the public, beg your pardon, going the public hearing route, as we're looking at it now, means it's done a month earlier, is that?
Probably, because if we do
Yeah,
this as
very
a
likely.
two-step dance, there's filings with the county, there's gonna be hangups with that could take it, and I don't even want to say it's gonna be 2 months or a month, it could take some time, I have,
So the minor subdivision, if you did the minor subdivision,
and you'd have to file deeds, and your attorney would need to file those deeds only to have them changed in another month,
We could
once
set
we
the
have what you
date
actually, what you
for
want.
next month.
in the public hearing, you're saying would be an easier route.
It would be an easier route, and since you said you
We-
already
we
have
have the
someone that's
paperwork.
interested.
We have the paperwork for the minor subdivision. That's how we started.
Mhm.
We have these material from the building inspector saying it was a minor subdivision. We have a final map from minor subdivision. We could actually set the public hearing for December. We could do that tonight. We could
That
set
would
it for
be great.
December. The secretary can get, Nicole can get out all the notifications to the contiguous homeowners. Do it in December. And then in January, we can make the decision. We're not able to do the decision in December. We can only do the public hearing in December.
Gotcha. And going the other route would potentially be a long.
Well, with the deeds and filing this map and then coming back and filing another map, first the natural subdivision, then the lot line with all the deeds and everything, you could be looking at March.
And more money too.
More money.
You're gonna have to
More money
have
for
it.
filing
First
fees.
year.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
paying lawyers to do.
Well, why don't we invite the community?
Have we
Bring
looked
candy,
at
bring
all,
candy.
all the,
All right,
I know I wasn't at
Go ahead.
the last meeting and I confess that I did not watch it on YouTube.
Oh,
But-
come on, man.
So
Fun.
if I'm recovering ground that was covered, it sounds like there was excitement about maybe an easier path. But I also see there's a lot of wetlands on this. We don't have a lot of the things that we normally look at with a minor subdivision, such as topos, such as where the home site's gonna go, where's the septic gonna go. I just don't see any of that on these maps. So I personally, again, with the caveat that I don't know what you guys discussed at the last meeting, this doesn't look anywhere near ready for a public comment because we don't have most of the information.
And that's why we
The-
avoided it, I think.
Right, so like,
Right.
I understand the logic.
But we
puzzle
could set a
excitement.
public hearing for the next contingent upon receipt of maps, which we do quite often, having all of those criteria. So showing, we do have a map in here that shows the wetlands, I believe.
Yeah, these wetlands are updated. I mean, this is level ground.
So
It's
we could-
17
you could
acres. I can get you a
say- But we could
feasibility
still say
letter.
contingent upon putting in topo, contingent upon putting a 100-foot
Also, where's the home site gonna go? Where's the driveway gonna go?
Septic.
Well,
The
it's
na-
pretty
it's a
obvious
relative- it's-
where
Can I
the,
just finish saying?
yeah, sorry.
Like, it's obvious where it's gonna go, but and I see the buffer. But like, again, just what we've been doing recently with these kinds of minor subdivisions is asking for just all that
A complete
information,
map.
driveway location, where's the house gonna go, where's the septic gonna go? Like, if it's flat, maybe we don't need topo, but there's no waiver requests, like, it's just, none of that stuff's in this file. And
Well, you don't need a waiver request for what?
for
For
topo,
topo.
For topo.
Well, that's fine. I can drop that.
I mean, I'm not saying that there's problems with this subdivision, I'm just saying that like, I don't have the information
Sam
to
brings up a good
determine
point.
whether there's
Yeah.
problems.
That before a public hearing, we want to have the maps so that if the public wants to view the maps, they can view the maps, and the map is incomplete. And actually, as I recall, going back to my notes from the last meeting, that was the content of most of my comments, was where's the wetlands map, where's the topo, where's the house, yada, 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 and then we came up with the idea
alternate
of
path.
doing the alternate.
Which doesn't require it.
And so you know what, there's got to be an adage out there when you try to cut corners, you wind
Well,
up.
it's not public comment or not, it's like, there's a different level of engineering and review that goes into a subdivision. The public comment is part of that. But it's not the only part.
So why don't we make a list, as we have done before, of the things that we would like to see on the map?
Mhm.
And then Heather will have the chance to do that, and contingent upon getting those things on the map, we set the public hearing for the next meeting, contingent upon the map being updated with those elements.
You have about a week before we have to post the public hearing.
My
Is that correct,
question,
Nicole?
I'm leaving
10
town
days?
on Friday
I'm
for
sorry?
2 weeks, so it will be either in on Friday or it won't
Next
be in
Friday.
until December.
Next
So,
Friday,
yeah, no, this Friday,
this Friday.
this Friday, it will
She has
happen.
more time, but she says it's.
I got a milestone birthday and I am.
All right, so let's make a list of the
So-
things, let's make a list of the things that you need to have on here.
Yeah.
Which-
My question, the sticking point I see is, we're talking about a total of 15 acres, probably at least 10 of them are upland. Do we need a feasibility, will a feasibility letter suffice in this regard? Or do you need a
Feasibility of
full, for septic feasibility? Are you gonna need test holes and
We can
Ulster
have
County
an
Health
engineer.
Department?
We've
We
taken
can have
engineer
certification.
certification.
You have, and I'm not exactly sure when that's okay and when that's not, so that's why I'm
In this
asking.
case, I would say it's
Okay,
okay.
great.
So we need that. We need the wetlands clearly delineated, the
Which
stream that
that
goes
are.
through it
Okay.
Wetlands
clearly
are delineated.
delineated.
Would you like to request a waiver from topo?
That I can have my tech drop it
Yes, I
in there.
would like to
That's,
request a waiver.
Oh, oh.
topo.
yeah, but yes,
She said she can do.
it's not a problem for me to put it. If
Just
it
put it in.
makes the public hearing
And put it in.
quicker,
Proposed
I can do it.
location
Yeah.
of house, well, and septic.
Now, or is this gonna be one of those where they can only develop within the limit of disturbance, or because this is such a large lot, I could just put that,
Well, you can't go in the wet, you have to be 100 feet away from the
Oh, she knows
wetlands.
that.
right?
You know that. So there's enough land there to, although once you put in the wetlands, it's not 15 acres left to put a
There's
house.
probably about,
There's lots.
there's a lot of land there. I'm gonna say 10 just by looking at
This
this.
is not next to
Yeah.
an ag district or farm that I remember. I don't think so.
I think there's some close by, but it's
Just
not in
double
an
check
ag.
in
It's
case you
not
need
in
an
an
ag.
ag.
Let's keep
yeah.
data
going.
statement.
And that's easy, yeah.
Yeah, but just in case there's an
Check
ag
the
data
ag
statement
statement.
needed.
Mhm.
I don't know if this is helpful information, but there is no proposed building of any sort going on. Our neighbor who's actually right there has offered to buy the land as a buffer for them.
Well, then here is another scenario.
Back to the
Can we
natural
do
subdivision
this
idea.
as a lot line adjustment with the neighbors, this land going to your neighbors and you keeping the land over there, and we're still out of subdivision?
No, then you're at a lot line improvement for. the
Why don't we
neighbor.
stop
No,
trying
no,
to,
no, if she.
No.
Then you're at a lot line improvement
She's
for the
gonna
neighbor.
combine it with the
Exactly.
neighbor.
Just combine with the
If they're
neighbor.
gonna,
So
you
it's-
said might, is it a definite or is it a might?
We haven't.
Well, she
we
would
haven't
have to
signed the
sign on
contract,
to-
And, yeah, so they've made an offer, we've accepted it, we're waiting to sign.
They would
So-
need to be a party in the application if they were interested
Right.
in doing that. So, so
I
that
don't know
would-
how that goes over, to be honest, but
And that, well, how it would help them is that this might happen a little quicker if we just did it as a lot line.
Hey, guys, I
adjustment.
don't mind making sausage and having everybody sit here and
Right,
help make the sausage. Tell me what you want to do. You're the experts.
Well, that's what she's asking now that she.
Well, now that we're here, and I didn't realize you said it was a neighbor, I wasn't sure it was these guys.
Yes, it is. Now, does that mean that this would be a separate lot to them?
Right,
or would
it's gonna
actually become
It would be
part of it?
merged into their lot.
They'd have a bigger lot,
They would just
so
have
if they
one
want to
large
do
lot, you
that,
would have one large.
And I would have to ask them.
right,
about
because
that.
they may want.
Why don't you ask them about that? And then while I try to
Well, you
gather
do the
this
other stuff, you see
information.
That's
about
a
a
lot
minor
easier.
subdivision.
Mhm.
That's super easy.
That's a lot.
Is there anything else that, assuming we go with the minor subdivision, that we don't go with this? lot line
You have
change?
the 100-foot right there.
Mhm.
Thing,
The
that's-
right of way
Yeah.
that goes in.
Mhm.
I guess one big lot.
Is adequate and it's all outside of the buffer, so. it
Exactly,
shouldn't
and
be a
it doesn't
problem.
go over 500 feet to get into the main part.
If it does, it might be around here and I got room to put in a turn off if I need
All
to,
right, so
so.
just stick one in for the
Yes,
a theoretical turn off.
a theoretical turn off will be there. Yeah, this is too.
Anything else that we need?
So you plan to sell lot two? That's what
Lot two, yeah, this,
Okay.
this one would just join with them. So you would need to ask them, are they okay with this all being one parcel, or are they interested in this being its own standalone parcel? That would decide it right there.
Leaving aside that answer for the moment, we are going to move forward with a public hearing at this point, trying for you to get all the information by Friday for them. I'm
Yes,
understanding
with the
process
idea that I
correctly.
And you
might
can
pull it
always-
back.
If we
Yeah.
get all
You
the
can always
information
withdraw
by
that if
Friday,
you wanna
Gotcha.
tonight, what
do
we'll
it the other
do
way.
is we'll vote to set the public hearing contingent upon all the information that we went through being on a new map
Mhm.
or saying.
It will either be a natural subdivision map, or it will be a lot line adjustment with the neighbors.
Yes.
As of
Wait a second, we get one.
before 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon.
Okay.
So I don't
What's-
want
How do we
Hang
get,
on, hang on, we're
how
not-
do we get a vote on either or?
No, we're
No,
gonna
we'll vote on
Vote.
one thing.
to
We're gonna
have the public hearing for a minor subdivision.
Right.
At the next meeting, contingent upon them getting in
Stuff.
all those things that were just
Mhm.
listed for them.
Yeah, I got that part.
All right, so that's where we are.
That's all we care about.
Yeah.
If
If
they
they-
come back
In
and
the
withdraw.
meantime, they decide they want to go the other direction because the neighbor says, yeah, one big lot's what we wanted anyway. Or that's fine with us if we can get our hands on that land
They pull
sooner, right? Which maybe that's the case. Then they can withdraw their subdivision application.
Yeah, at the next
And then
meeting.
they can join with the neighbors in a new application
Exactly.
for a lot line adjustment
Okay. All
between them and the neighbors.
right. Okay.
Mary Lou, I have a question for you. Your house is on the historic register, I think?
Yes. it
Yes.
is. Mhm.
Do we need to send this to SHPO for a minor subdivision?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not on a lot.
But not on a lot line, which is also the appeal of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is what we tried.
That's what we tried, yeah.
So,
Or you could get the letter out to SHPO.
We get,
Yeah,
get
and then
the letter out to
disregard it
SHPO.
if we don't really need to.
right.
All right,
so
so why don't we,
Yeah, send a letter to
Just send it
SHPO.
tomorrow.
why don't we? You got that, Nicole?
Yep.
Why don't we set the public hearing? Entertain a motion to set a public hearing for December 13th, thank you. To consider a minor subdivision,
Yep, contingent.
Contingent.
upon-
contingent upon the receipt of the information that we just went through by this Friday at 3 o'clock. All right, I'll entertain that motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second, Sorian,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
I'm opposed to it. I don't think we have enough to move to public comment, but clearly everyone else does, so. that's how it is.
Okay. Motion passes.
Thank you for your time and your help.
All right.
Yes, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is Rock Mountain Farms. Oh, yeah. So this is, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Karen Osterhout, president of Rock Mountain Farms. This is my husband Howard.
Howard, how are you? And the gentleman next to you? Oh, okay. All right, so at the last meeting, we got as far as, let me just get it up.
We read the decision.
We did.
We read the findings. As I recall, if anybody recalls something different, let me know. And we stopped at the point, here we go. We stopped at the point where we were going to read the conditions, because the point was raised, is this another subdivision of a previous subdivision? And so we tabled the entire decision until myself and our attorney could cull through the files. I'm not going to suggest that I knew what I was looking at, so the attorney knew what she was looking at and determined that this was not a recent subdivision of the original subdivision, that it was, so therefore it was the first subdivision, and the way it was typed as a minor subdivision was correct. So I believe, Madam Attorney, that we can pick up where we left off, the
Did you
decision.
vote on the findings?
We voted on the
Yes.
findings.
Yes, now
And
you can vote on the
pick up
decision.
on the
It was just contingent upon your review.
decision. Yep, I know
Yeah.
that. All right, so on your computers, the decision is in there. And we also, thank you. And we had typed it from the seeker. We had typed it as if we made a negative declaration. So if you go to your computer, it's on, I'm going to start on page 4, which is the conditions of approval. So resolve, the Town of Rochester Planning Board grants minor subdivision conditional final approval, permitting the subdivision of land situated at Kathy Joe Place, Accord, New York. The subdivision plan dated March 14, 2021 and revised. John Post, when was it revised? All right, so
October 21st.
let me see.
Add notes.
It was revised 8/21/21. Conditions of approval. All fees due to the Town of Rochester involving this application shall be paid in full prior to the chair's signature on the final plat. The applicant shall present a final plat for signature. The final plat shall show updated plan revision dates and shall include a location map. Somewhere in one of these maps, there is a location map. The map that you send me for signature needs to have the location map on it. And the one, did we receive that? If you're not sure,
It's now also on.
I have one map with no location on it and another map with a location. So in any case, the final map that I sign has to have a location map. And if you could make the revision dates on there so that I don't need a magnifying glass to be able to see the revision dates, that would really help in a little bit here. Okay, number 3, the following plat note shall be included on the recorded final plat map. Number 1, any further subdivision shall be treated as a major subdivision under Tour subdivision law 125-12. 2, this property contains land within the 100-year floodplain as depicted by FEMA on plate 36111 CO570F, effective as of 11/18/2016. Any construction or disturbance within the FEMA designated 100-year floodplain shall adhere to the Code of Town of Rochester, Chapter 81, Flood Damage Prevention or its successors. 4, certification shall be provided indicating Lot 2 is capable of supporting on-site water and septic in the form of preliminary or final approval by the Ulster County Health Department or a signed letter by a New York State licensed engineer. All required local, county, state, or federal permits shall be secured for the current and future use of these lands, specifically local driveway permits. This conditional final approval shall expire 180 days from this approval date unless the final plat is presented and signed by the chair. And I'll sign it just as soon as all the conditions are met on the final map. This period may be extended for 2 additional 90-day periods upon application to and resolution by the Town of Rochester Planning Board. The Town of Rochester Planning Board further grants minor subdivision conditional final approval permitting the subdivision of lands upon satisfactory completion of the conditions of approval 1 through 4. I believe it should be 1 through 4, not 1 through 3. Is that correct? And grants the authority to the chair to certify that the conditions have been met and review, sign, and date the plat without further resolution at such time. The effect of this approval, the owner shall file in the office of the Ulster County Clerk such approved plat bearing the chair's signature and any other related documents within 62 days from the date of signature, or such approval shall be deemed to expire without further notice in accordance with New York State Town Law of Section 276. The owner shall have the responsibility to return 3 Ulster County Clerk certified copies of the filed plat and any other related documents to the Town of Rochester Planning Board within 30 days of such filing. This resolution is adopted November 8th, 2021 by the following vote. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the conditions as just read.
I'll make a motion for that.
Second, Sam seconds. All in favor?
Hi.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes and not unanimously. I vote aye also. Motion was made and seconded and approved. So
So the way I look at it, I just heard all that. I didn't know that was on there. You need one more health department approval, but I thought if a lot was over 5 acres, it didn't need to be Ulster County Health Department approved.
I'm going to leave that to you, Mary.
I do not know because I don't get involved with the health department approval.
My understanding is that we
In our law, we have. to
always ask for a
I
certification.
mean,
that-
there's no problem
Right,
with it,
doesn't-
it's just not.
Well, we already have approval.
I got approval on the one
Or
lot,
final approval.
So we
but
need
the
another
other
lot
lot,
number
when
2.
Barry was there, was over 5 acres.
Or a
so
signed
we
letter
didn't worry
by the
about it.
licensed
So you don't,
engineer.
exactly, you don't need the Department of Health necessarily. to
An
only do
engineer
it.
can certify.
An
that
engineer
it's-
can certify that this looks to be okay. It's not a pond, a swamp.
No, it's all gravel.
Right,
it's fine.
yeah, exactly.
So it's either or.
Okay.
So I'll accept
I'll
something
call
from,
Barry and I'll get it.
Yeah, Barry can write a letter.
That's it.
Okay.
Exactly.
and then just submit that.
And
Try
the
to-
driveway permit, we already got one last year.
Okay.
Right.
So just try to submit everything, the map and the letter from the engineer. Just try to submit it all at once. So
So you'll be giving me a list of what your expectations are. I will get that.
that's in
Well, you'll
the,
get the
Get a copy
decision.
of
It's
the
all
decision.
in
We'll get a
decision.
copy.
Because I just
That's all
have
I
to tell
need.
you, the information coming back to us has been very slow to none. It's been a little frustrating through our process here with this
Well,
board.
I apologize if it seemed that way. After every meeting that we've had with yourselves, that you weren't here, somebody else was here. We sent a letter. In fact, we sent 2 letters, one on September something or another, and the other one on October 15th. And both those letters were very specific as to
Where
what we
did they
wanted.
go?
Wait, thank God my husband came in this afternoon to speak to
Nicole.
Nicole. We didn't know this was even on the agenda tonight. We didn't get notice. It's been the case all the way through this process.
Well, you
It's been a
have,
little frustrating.
you have a representative right there,
Who
John
I
Post.
signed him up to be here when we couldn't be here. That doesn't mean he gets total control of what goes on with my subdivision.
Did you send the letters after each of our meetings to the applicants as well as the,
Oh,
I got some, didn't get them all.
there were only 2.
Should have been noticed about a meeting tonight. I don't want to argue the issue. I'm just
Well,
looking.
generally, when we just continue something to the next meeting and you have a representative here, we don't give notice. We say it's on for the next meeting, and I'm sorry that you didn't know that. We kind of assume that your representative would tell you.
There was a
So I
young,
apologize. It's not something,
yeah, there was a young lady here. I think it was your
My daughter was here because
And
we
we-
were
Yes,
away
right,
when this
right.
all
And the
came
minutes,
down.
we said to her that we have to table it until we research it. It'll be on the agenda for the
We
next
knew
meeting.
that, yeah.
Oh.
Well, I didn't know it was gonna be on this meeting. no.
The whole process about the subdivision question could have been one that was answered straight up, would have saved all. My issue is you're gonna have other people coming before you. It's always nice to streamline things so
Okay.
other people have a better
The
time.
issue of the subdivision, if you could have provided us with information,
If you asked me, I would have.
your representative was here and you have a representative over there. You weren't here. We did ask, we had a long discussion that night. You weren't here either.
I was sick.
That's right, you were sick. Your daughter was here. Had a long discussion about the issue of, was it already subdivided at one time, which makes it a major subdivision or not? Nobody could answer that.
That
We
was
got-
after 8 months.
Hang on.
That question came after 8
We
months.
got you, John, on the phone, and we didn't get any answers.
Right, he wasn't sure either. So we-
You weren't
so we-
sure.
So
So
I-
we tabled it
I mean, I've owned a lot.
for this meeting. And so you now have your approval.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is Frank Courtwright. And does anybody else want to be participate in the public hearing? Have you heard about this project?
Rumor had it, needed more maps.
Did you spread those out, Heather? Just pass them around.
I'll pass them around.
One side, that's good.
Okay. The public hearing. We have to do, Frank, before we do public hearing, we have to do seeker. It's called the part 2 of the seeker process, where we go through a series of questions. I'll read through them. The board should have the seeker form, I believe, on the Google Drive. Heather, do you have a copy of it?
I don't have the part 2, but I do theoretically should have the secret here, the CAF. But not part 2. Because you guys fill out part 2, not me.
He just
All
made
right,
you follow along.
It's,
Oh, sure.
it's painless.
Yeah, no, it's, I've got it in my head.
Okay, so there are 11, questions here. I'll go through them. I'll tell you what I think, and if anybody has a different, has an objection. Maren, you okay with doing secret?
No, I was like, the 11 questions, I'm like, oh my God, you came with 11 questions out of nowhere, they're the 11 secret questions, sorry. I was like,
Number
Yeah,
1, will the
secret
proposed
question.
action create a material conflict with the adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No or small impact. 2, will the proposed action result in a change in the use of intensity, in the use or intensity of use of land? No or small impact. 3, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No or small impact may occur. 4, will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of critical environmental area? This is not even in a critical environmental area, so obviously it's a no or small impact. 5, will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No or small impact may occur. 6, will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No or small impact may occur. Will the proposed action impact existing public or private water supplies? No or small impact. Part B of that, or public, private wastewater treatment facilities? No or small impact. 8, will proposed action impair the character or quality of important historical, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No or small impact. 9, will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No or small impact. 10, will the proposed action result in an increase in potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No or small impact. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No or small impact. Does anybody have any objection to any of those? I'll change the category. Okay, fine. So then on the part 3, the second page of part 3, I checked the box in that we determined, based on the information and analysis above, and any supporting documentation, that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts. And for that, we need a motion and a second, and then a roll call vote.
I
So
make a
I'll entertain a
motion
motion.
for the negative deck.
I'll second it. Maren makes it, Patrick seconds. Roll call vote?
Mr. Williams,
Yes. Do you want me to do the roll?
Ms. Lindstrom,
Yes. Would you like some of my tea?
Mr. Gross,
Yes.
Mr. Pinsky,
Yes.
Ms. Maloney,
Yes.
and Mr. Zarowski,
Yes.
Chair Jones.
Yes. Motion's made, seconded, and approved by individual voice votes. And I'll sign this. I'll sign it later. It's got a whole bunch of things in it. Okay, we're ready to open the public hearing. Is there anybody else? I have one person on the list for the public hearing. Just please address the board, not the applicant. I'd like to hear any information that the board may need to consider about this application that might change or affect in some way our decision. 5 to 7 minutes should do it. And right now I have just one person on the sign-in sheet, last name O'Connor, Flynn O'Connor. Okay, Flynn, why don't you stand up and
I just was wondering, that would, the zoning in that area would change residential, everything else around stays the same? Nothing else would change?
Yes. That's correct. Nothing else changes.
That was all I was wondering. Otherwise, I'm all for it. I'm adjoining closest by property owner. So,
Okay.
just curious.
Okay.
Otherwise,
Heather, would you confirm that?
Yes, that is true.
Okay. Anybody else like to be heard on this matter? Then I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Sam, second. Anne Marie.
I'm losing my voice now. so.
Anne Marie, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Stop.
Anybody opposed? Anybody opposed?
No.
Okay, the motion is carried. Frank, you came just in time. We can't do this decision tonight. We would normally probably do the decision. We'll see you on December 12th, 13th.
Maybe we'll see you 12 like it's Stewart.
Or vote somebody new into the New York State legislature. They don't make stupid laws like this.
So we have to post it, the resolution, at least 24 hours ahead of time. We will do that. And then we'll read the decision at that meeting. And at that point in time, you'll have your decision. Okay, is there anything else from the applicant?
I just needed some language from you, Mary Lou, about the special use permit that we needed. If you wanted to have that on the map. But that could all come as part of the final conditions. All right.
Yeah, I think it
You're
should,
dismissed, yeah.
I think it should say that a special use permit is required at the time of the building application. I think that's
Yeah,
what
if we
it's
could
supposed
just
to
like type it on the condition, so I like having it written out exactly how you want it, and then I
We'll
put it
put it in
on
the
the map.
conditions.
That's very doable.
Okay.
And the
great.
letter that Nicole will send out, she can just, that's what we typically do is say.
You guys should like make some wallpaper of all of the map.
So Nicole, we're still going to let this in.
I should sell it as like
Nightmares.
small animal bedding after I try to.
Exactly. You're right, small animal bedding.
The next, thank you, Heather, thank you. Mr. Corbett.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is also public hearing, continued application. Mr. Solsberg and or Mr. Demers. Mr. Solsberg, how are you? Reginald, is that it? Reginald?
This is Dave.
David, sorry, David Demers. And this is Mr. Solsberg. How are you? Just give me a second. to get this up. This is the court record. Do we have maps?
Here's some others.
Subtract.
Yes, fragments from other files.
Is this Kyle court record? Those two are Chromestone.
And here's a front court.
Do we have maps for Soulsville? Just one map? Anne Marie, could I have those maps in the middle of the?
There you go.
Okay,
So you want this one? Maybe it's this one.
so just to refresh everybody's memory,
Bring it over.
this is a minor subdivision.
You sure?
The owner and the applicant, one and the same, propose a division of a parcel, section block lot number 68.2-1-74.200 into two separate lots. The first lot of give or take 5.6 acres, and lot 2 of 4.33 acres. Parcel is located at 232 Doug Road, Cord, New York. Parcel is flat to steeply sloping. The subdivision proposes a shared driveway with a 50-foot right-of-way through lot 1 to lot 2. Lot 1 will have the current existing single-family dwelling, well and septic. Parcel is wooded and is in the top 5% of the listed DEC forest woodlands areas, and is within 250 feet of the Pacama fly, a biologically important area, which is proposed in the town's resource management study to be designated as a critically endangered area. So this requires seeker as well. If you have the seeker form, you should have it in your Google Drive. So we're going to do the same thing we did for the previous one. We just need to read through this, answer the questions, and then the board needs to declare whether this is a negative or positive declaration based upon the answers to these questions. So the first question is, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? No or small impact may occur. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? No or small impact may occur. 3, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No or small impact may occur. 4, will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? It's not a CEA, but so therefore no or small impact. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkways? No or small impact. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No or small impact. Will the proposed action impact existing public or private water supplies? Either no or small impact. Or public and private wastewater treatment utilities? No or small impact. 8, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No or small impact. 9, will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No or small impact. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No or small impact. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No or small impact. So I'm looking for, I'll entertain a motion to declare this is make a negative declaration, and this being a unlisted and
Uncoordinated.
thank you, uncoordinated action.
I'll make that motion.
Sam has made the motion,
Second.
seconded by Zorian. Roll call vote.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Ms. Lindstrom,
Aye.
Mr. Grasso,
Aye.
Mr. Pinsky,
Aye.
Ms. Maloney. Aye. Mr. Zarowski,
Yeah.
Chair Jones.
Yes. The board is determined, everybody is unanimous, a unanimous yes. The board is determined, based on the information analysis above and any supporting documentation, that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts. So the seeker is done, and I'll sign that later. Okay. Do we have anybody who wishes to speak? Do you have the sign-in sheet?
Nobody signed up.
Nobody signed in? So if there's anybody that would like to speak on this project, happy to hear, would appreciate just identifying yourself. You could just state your first name if you don't want to give your whole name. And if you're from Rochester, and please address the board, not the applicants. And 5 to 7 minutes a person should just about do it. Does anybody would anybody like to speak on this project? Going once, going twice.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion is passed. Public hearing is closed. And
We can't make a decision.
You'll
we
have to
can't make a
next
decision
month with
tonight.
The new law.
So
Thanks, New York State Legislature.
you'll have to come back, you or your representatives,
What?
to the December meeting, December
Maybe
13th.
someone needs to say.
At which
Usually we'd
time-
have it now, if there was no comment from the public, but the New York State Legislature, as Mary Lou said, just passed a rule that we have to.
So what happens if we just violate? It says, no, I'm serious. It says to the extent practicable.
No,
It
we're
doesn't
not,
say
we're
that
not
anymore.
going.
They edited it?
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
We're not,
because
we're
they
not
had it.
going there.
It's been
We
to
have
the
to
extent
follow the
practical for
state
years.
statute.
Just so you know that.
So,
But now it's.
Someone should violate it, get sued, win in court.
all right,
Let somebody else do it.
Yeah.
Get it
Let
over
somebody
with.
else
Take it to- yeah.
enough. We're not going to violate it, even though we might want to. We're going to send you a letter for anything else that might be needed on the map.
Alrighty.
I don't think there's anything. We do need a road maintenance agreement.
I have it already.
We have it?
Yeah.
It's been filled in?
Yeah.
Okay,
Just have
we
to
have
send
it.
it
Did
to
you
me.
review it?
No, I have not.
All right, so we just need
We
to
were
review
waiting
that.
on a decision.
Whatever.
Date.
Don't strain yourself.
Right.
So
There
we're,
was some today.
we're done,
Okay.
but you'll have to come back for the decision. Sorian?
Where was that letter that we sent October 15th with the DEC overlay, environmental overlay? Rough, through the lot trees supported by existing well septic, do you have documentation?
All of that just goes
Everything.
into the conditional approval.
Right.
I've done this a million times. So we just say as a condition of approval,
But we're asking overlays, not condition as.
and that can still be, that can be in the letter right now.
But it's already was in a letter once.
Well, you can do it in a letter twice, sorry. You can do a letter 3 times, 4 times, 500
Okay,
times.
fine.
So what Sorian is referring to, you will get a letter, just like the previous project, outlining the items, and some of these are restates of whatever we've stated, but those need to be on. We can make the decision. If you indicate, well, we can make a decision and it'll be part of that decision that you have to get these items on the map before all assignment. And I believe Zorian is correct. The items that are missing has to do with proof that lot number 2 can be supported by existing well or septic, or a letter either from the Department of Health or a letter from a licensed engineer stating, attesting to that fact. The revision dates, I think the revision dates are on the latest map that we
Yeah.
got.
It is.
Again, I can't read it,
I-
but they're there.
It's there.
And the other one is what Sorian is referring to, which is the DEC environmental overlays.
Yes, and there's a note on that.
It's on the map.
It's there.
There's a
Well,
note,
it's just a note. it's
but there's
not-
no overlays.
Because there was nothing there.
There's no DEC overlays in that area?
There was a note of what was in that area.
No, just making statement.
No adjacent New York State DEC environmental sensitive areas as per the locator.
Environmental resource. DEC
Yeah.
environmental.
So he's saying there are none. That's why there's none shown on the map.
And that-
So you went
that's
to
there.
you went to the Ulster County
Went to
DEC.
DEC.
DEC
DEC.
overlay,
Yeah.
and there was nothing.
Environmental
The
map.
only thing there was
Okay, and that's the note that you,
And that's the note.
Gotcha.
Nothing to put on.
Yeah.
so we're covered. So if you see that note in your letter again,
Okay.
you're covered. All right,
All right, thank
so we're
you.
done.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Mr. Norman. And this is Mrs. Norman?
Mrs. Norman.
The Normans are here.
Yeah. we're here. I know.
All right, can we just hold up maps? You have maps first, Nicole? Just give us a second, Mr. Norman. Mr. and
Oh,
Mrs.
no
Norman,
problem.
as we get our stuff together.
Which maps do you want?
The ones that you and I were looking at today, the one with the,
Like, I think there are 2 copies in that. And then I have additional copies here.
yeah, this is the one I want. If you have more. Sam, did you pass that down? Sam, you can look on.
No, we're exempt.
Yeah, I didn't see a date on it either.
Okay, I got you up on the screen.
So this,
Would you,
this is more updated than what you have here online.
online is more updated?
Yeah, so
Well,
the
what you-
PDF
what-
file
did
with
you
all the
bring that?
setbacks. Nicole just gave it up, so
No, this one is the same. You have an old one. This one has it.
This one. has it?
This one has it because
421?
he's got one, it doesn't show, this shows the buffer, the 100-foot buffer. This shows the stream going through. This shows everything that we asked for,
This has the buffer on it too.
but whatever, he's got some old, he's got
Oh,
some
you
old.
have an old one.
There's a mix.
421.
There's a lot of maps.
We should put the old ones in.
Okay.
Put the old ones away.
So
Yeah, but-
That is the new one.
What is the date of the file in the folder?
I thought this were the same.
my dear Zorian, the date of the filing in the folder is 10/1/2021, 10/1 Norman SPD survey. That will pull up the one that that is sitting here that they have that has,
Then survey map?
yes.
10/01?
Right.
Okay, so Mr. Norman, I remember you being here back in April or May.
Yeah.
Maybe it was. longer.
Well, it was
Zoom.
Zoom.
Whatever it was.
Remember
Zoom.
me not being here.
Remember it as a
So,
specter.
You're now here in person.
Yes.
This is a minor subdivision. Would you describe for the members of the board what you're trying to accomplish?
Yes, I'm trying to just take 5 acres off of the 32 acres. Have my son have them because it already had the approval.
I remember this, yeah.
Has the approval, the electric, the well, the septic already there. Couldn't do it because I didn't have the 27 acres with a Board of Health approval, getting across the stream from the DEC, et cetera, et cetera. Everything has been provided. DEC said, yes, I can get across if I do with rubber tires. I can get across if I build a bridge. That's doable. I stayed off the wetlands so I could
Nice.
subdivide this 27 acres off. That's what I'm here for. Everything's been done that I know of.
All right, so,
And the engineer signed off and the Board of Health.
okay, so I have a couple of
Thank you.
questions. And I'm looking at the map. Where are you crossing the stream? And let me tell you where I think you're crossing it. You tell me if I'm right or wrong. Van Tyne Road truncates with is a stub for your 27 acres. That looks like where you're going to be coming in with your road.
I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not putting anything on that property. So this is just So if you're,
Well, wait, you've got, on that property, you've got a proposed
Because
house.
they have to have it.
Because they have.
we
a
have
house
to
that
have
you
that.
asked for.
That was
Yeah.
we asked for.
Because we asked for it,
I
so they
asked for a
did.
proposed house.
But you're not
proposed
building one.
purpose,
Right.
And we're
So
not
they
building.
did perk holes, perk tests, they proposed the house, and the proposed comes in off of the old Woods Road that
Right.
goes in
Right.
there.
So the
they're using
continuation
the
of
old
the
Woods
Van Tine.
Road, which they
Right.
have a right of way there,
Okay,
plus 2 other right of ways off of Van Tine that they could use in theory.
okay. So it's the
Second
Wood
one,
Road,
yeah.
the second one,
This one.
Yes,
up at the top.
So
Okay.
the Wood Road.
not the
is-
very top one, the middle one down.
Will you point on your map?
Let me see if I can.
So here.
That one?
Yep.
That's where you,
That's it.
Yeah, okay, that's what I
Right,
thought.
exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
All right,
So everything is.
Okay. So you have a right of way to that.
Yes.
The way I read the letter from Brian Drum from the DEC was he was okay with crossing that stream with rubber tires. He mentioned specifically ATVs.
I know.
The implication, and he goes on in the next paragraph to say, but if you intend to make this a driveway, you've got to build a bridge, put in a culvert, all that other
Correct.
good stuff. So you know that, right? And you have to apply for that.
I have to
Okay.
apply for those permits.
All right. And I guess that would be part of the conditions. If this is done,
That
you
they
have
have
to.
to, you know, apply with
Abide by
all
all of
state,
the-
federal,
Yeah.
et cetera, it's local, state, federal.
Okay.
county.
I mean, you could
And
also
they're
write
gonna give us
that
report cards.
on the,
On the map.
on the map also, if for some reason you
Right.
won the lottery and moved away to Tennessee and wanted to sell that piece. So the people who then buy it after that, they know.
If you win the lottery, you're going to Tennessee.
There's no
That's
tax-
what I took out of
Tennessee or
that.
Florida, there's no tax.
No taxes, there's no taxes.
Taxes.
I won the lottery, I'm going place with no taxes. There's no water in Texas. You can't go to
Okay.
Texas without water.
So let's go, that was the only concern that I had, where you were at,
Right.
of course. Let's go around the room. Sam, you want to start? Any comments?
No, I appreciate the applicants getting all this information together. It's a challenging parcel. Especially because of the stream crossing. I guess I still feel like we should look at the topo. But, you know, I guess what does the rest of the board think on that? But everyone keep going around.
In this one that he did, the topo is drawn on it, but it's so flat, you don't see any topo.
Oh, these,
Right.
I see.
Yes, so you do have topo.
So
You
it
just have
is,
to
okay, great.
Yes,
Oh, I see.
accustom yourself to a
We
hand-drawn
thought it
map.
was another
Exactly.
stream,
It's
but it's a
beautiful.
topo line.
No, I love that it's hand drawn.
It's gorgeous.
I
So
just
the
am used to
topo
the
is
heat,
there.
the heat
Yeah.
sensing.
There are still
map now.
surveyors that do things by hand?
Yeah,
Bert
Bert.
Bert
Bert
does,
does.
yeah. When he retires, I think it's pretty
This
much.
would be the last one,
Yeah.
probably.
Anne Marie, you have any
I
comments or
think
questions?
it is what it needs to be, so I
Okay.
don't have any issues with it.
Zorian,
I don't know.
Mark,
I'm all set.
Maren?
I am also, they did everything we asked for.
Mhm.
I agree. And they did everything we asked for.
I have
It's
it's not a question so much for the applicant, but just, I've never, like, the idea of having a Ford as the access for, is it legal still in New York State? I understand for intermittent use it is, but if you were to build a house, is that not allowed for fire code? I understand that they've addressed this question in their application, where if they're gonna build a house, the DEC is saying you would need a culvert or a bridge,
Mhm.
and there's requirements for that. But my question is like, could you actually build a house and just be like, yeah, we're gonna get to our house by fording the stream?
Sure.
Yeah,
Or does that violate fire code?
I mean,
Yeah,
I
Get there
think
and
so.
that's a
Yeah,
good
No, I
philosophical
think they
question.
need
If,
driveway
You would
permits
need
to-
a driveway
Right.
permit.
Yeah,
I don't know, if the neighbor lets you park in
Need
their,
a dock.
in their garage and you carried your groceries like this all the time and.
well, it's the fire trucks and the ambulances. we're
Right.
Yeah,
concerned with.
exactly.
That's what I was wondering about, like, could you still, like, it used to be you could, but I thought it'd be cool if you could just ford. the
I have
creek.
no idea.
Get this-
I have
You
no
get
idea.
tired of that after a while.
All right.
Some of us. didn't
That's
get
it. That's the
to
end. It was
play
just
that
a
because
little
they didn't have
diversion.
computers when we were.
All right.
I went fishing at the
What do we
back of my
do?
truck.
Set it for
We set
public
it for
hearing.
Public hearing.
Set it for
Yeah.
public hearing?
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion to set this for public hearing.
So moved.
At the
Mark,
December meeting, I
second.
assume.
Second,
Anne Marie, all in
On
favor?
December 13th.
December 13th.
That's
regular.
that's the
I am in
next one.
favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? I'm in favor of also, so this would be December
then.
13th, public hearing.
So we're done.
I'll also compliment, what's his name, Bert Winnie?
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
He
I
did,
love
he
this
did all of
map.
the,
He's an artist.
Nice.
He
You
is.
the
did it a couple
printing by,
times.
Yeah.
by hand.
That one I did twice, 3
Got a
times.
little grouchy, somewhere in the middle of doing it.
I
but
took
we
a
did it.
course in landscape design and they had to
Yeah.
teach me how to
Yeah.
It's just this, like,
write the names of stuff on it. It drove me crazy. He did the whole thing by hand.
Yeah, he did 3 of those.
Probably
He
with
didn't,
the
you mean he didn't
catfish.
replicate?
Probably with the catfish.
Yeah.
He didn't
That's how they
replicate
learn
it?
how to write.
No, he
well, you had to edit it.
had to edit every one of them, because we added things to them,
Um,
parcels, setbacks.
Artists.
Street.
It is an artist.
He is an artist.
It is. an artist.
Good for him.
So then come the public hearing, I show up,
You show up,
Hopefully nobody else.
we taught you,
there's no, just sit here, listen,
and
and
just sit here and listen.
Right.
If you choose to make any comments, you
No,
can. I
okay.
didn't ask the other people. I should have, who were here, the other applicants, they could certainly
Yeah.
make a
Yeah.
comment. If you choose
Okay,
to make a
great,
comment, you
and
can.
then after that,
And normally, we
After we
used to have a
vote on
draft decision then, because if nobody had any comments, it didn't have to feed into what we did. Unfortunately, now you've heard repeatedly that now the New York State Legislature has stated that we have to not have everything prepared ahead of time. And if the public says nothing, you wait the next month, so January is done. It
We'll
would have
be
been
back
For the
done.
final.
You'll come
That
back
just
in
happened.
January
That
for
was
the
the-
decision.
You'll have your
Our hands
approval.
are tied on that. so.
okay, so,
Maybe fine.
A late Christmas present.
so January, then it gets approved, then I can go to the lawyer to do all the deeds. I can't do anything until January.
That's right.
Okay.
So you're gonna come in December for the public hearing.
Yeah, I got it.
You're
yeah.
gonna come back in January for us to read the decision, give you the decision.
And then as soon as that's done, I get paperwork and I can carry it to the lawyer.
Right.
Okay. Okay,
Okay.
fair enough.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank
Okay.
you guys very
Thanks for
much.
having it. So
It's such a process.
I don't know
Yeah,
on
it's
that,
been
that's
interesting.
out there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Lawler. Nice meeting you, Mrs.
Thank
Lawler. I want to take a quick 5-minute break, if that's okay with the board. The next project is Mr. Venezia. Is he here? Why don't you come on up?
Patiently waiting.
We're going to take a 5-minute break, or I'm going to take a 5-minute break. Have a
I'm gonna
seat.
meet, I guess I should mute us.
twins rooting for the Spartans. That's the color of Michigan State. The two of you look like you should
I
have
don't know
the
anything about
Spartan on
that.
your mask.
They're not green.
Patrick,
They are green. Why am I
They're getting
thinking of Wisconsin?
Okay. I was
So
gonna say,
You're totally
My
right.
nephew got
You're-
his doctorate from.
Yeah, you're totally right. I'm thinking or Ohio State. Now I'm gonna, what, like,
The Ohio State.
the Ohio State. Is it Wisconsin this night? There's somebody that's that like burgundy.
You never
Maybe they're the
traveled from
Crimson
here.
Tide.
No, I mean, somebody that cheated, but had to. Yeah.
All right, you
That's
know
so
what, let's,
funny.
Patrick
Oh
will be,
my God.
let's wait for Patrick. I'm
Probably
sure
make
he'll be
you
here
work
shortly.
Funny stuff.
Crimson Tides.
Yeah, you should tell them that.
That's Arkansas, isn't it?
Yeah.
Marie, she chewed me out.
Isn't that Alabama?
Yes,
Alabama.
exactly. It's Alabama.
One of those
Yeah.
A
No, but see,
states.
I
in
never
this-
did that. I was.
There are people, I was about to say, there are people in the Midwest right now
Never did
coming
that.
at her with like, you confused
I know,
Alabama.
I have a couple friends who are,
No, I'm just so
are
excited
like,
about this.
every week I see their roll tide.
Nicole, could I have a Reese's Pieces?
Absolutely.
Luckily, they're
Oh my
not-
God.
Sergeant Pete, you know that.
Side-
Walking-
Anybody else?
walking the
Doesn't get
pool,
any
I'm
better.
out of a few tickets.
Did
I said,
it?
"Oh, yeah,
Isn't
what is
that-
this
Eat some more, I don't want to take them home.
Oh, you brought 'em?
Full of bricks.
You didn't have anybody at the house, huh? I don't even get any candy anymore. Nobody comes.
Yeah, nobody ever comes.
Kids don't trick or
My
treat.
brother gets
Until
1,000
baby
kids.
suited, like, she's
Right here.
coming at that.
I know, I'm telling you. This is too.
Okay,
Alright.
planning board is back in session.
Everybody can walk in.
Steve, are we rolling?
Yeah, we're rolling.
Okay,
Everybody's having fun here.
Mr. Venesia, how are you?
Okay, sir.
Everybody should have on the Google Drive a map. Looks like this, a sketch map.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Why don't you tell us what you want to do?
I would like to subdivide my 5.9 acres into 3 acres and 2.9 straight directly across the middle. Eventually, I'd like to put a house. Me and my sister, she'd like to move up.
So there's an existing house there?
There's a cabin
Back.
on top. And I want to subdivide the property on the bottom.
Okay, pretty simple.
Yeah, I seen I had enough clearance.
You have a lot of work to do.
Right. But I love it. I love it.
So I think the first, I'll just make one comment and then we'll go around starting with Patrick. So think about what you're going to say. The first thing that we need, this is wonderful. I get a good idea of, but we can't work with this. We have to get a map done by a licensed survey.
Yeah, I have somebody.
So that's the first thing you have to do.
Okay.
You know, and on that map, meets and bounds, setbacks, where the existing house is, septic, water, the same for what you're proposing on the other
Okay.
lot. You need to put topos on here.
The septic and well for the
Proposed
proposed house. for the
proposed house
New
as
area,
well.
down in the new area. Okay.
You're gonna
And
need-
also where the existing is.
And for the existing, yes. You're gonna need topos on here. If there are any overlay zones, meaning core habitat lands, wetlands, anything like that, and your surveyor should know. Would you mind telling me who your surveyor is?
Mercurio,
Oh, okay, Norton and Trolley
yes,
and
Okay.
Marshall.
there's a lot of names. They haven't.
If they have any questions, there's an elaborate exegesis of what you have to put on the map.
Okay.
All right,
That's within the application package.
Okay.
all right. So they need to do that and the best.
Are they familiar with the area? I know that, you know.
Yeah,
them,
we had
'cause
them before.
just
Yeah,
before us a
they
few
should-
times.
they do
Basically
have
picking out of a
good- yeah,
hat to
they-
do that. 'cause
they-
No, they've been
They've
before
got
us.
good.
Unless you could recommend somebody else that you guys.
No, they know all the
Okay.
stuff to put on.
And we're not allowed to make
We're not allowed to-
recommendations,
okay,
but they
I
have,
understand.
they're,
Confident.
they're familiar.
So the more that you can get them to do ahead of time, following the instructions here. And if they have any questions, they can call the office.
Okay.
They can email me, whatever. We'll try to step them through it if they have any questions. But the more you get on that first map, the fewer times you have to come back here.
Okay, so this time, this is like a no count?
Just
don't
Yes, you
count.
could call it.
It's step one.
We're
Nice
not
to
gonna-
meet everybody.
Yeah,
Hello.
exactly.
Nice to meet you.
We're not gonna- We're not gonna,
I'm in no rush.
we're not
I
gonna take
understand
money
you
out
don't
of
bill
your
you- we don't
house.
bill
you for this one.
That's
Now,
okay.
the other thing is you did put some money in escrow, I understand.
Yes.
Okay, so what that's used for, we We have a planning consultant who's here tonight. Her name is Liz. Raise your hand.
Hello, Liz.
And all that Liz, this is a fairly simple subdivision for licensing.
Okay.
But what Liz is going to do is to reassure us if your surveyor sends us the complete map
Okay,
as per what it says in the package that you received, she'll review it and tell us, yeah, it's complete or it's not, it's missing the following.
okay,
At that point, you're halfway home.
okay.
All right, and it comes back here with that map, Liz's comments. We go through it. You make whatever adjustments are necessary to that map. Then we go through a seeker determination, go to public hearing, and then we do the decision.
Okay.
All right.
So when I get that map, excuse me, from the architect, how do I get it to her? Or just-
So you'll
you-
send
you
me
Send
everything
everything to
a
Nicole.
PDF copy, but we also require 5 printed copies
Hard
like that,
Big copy.
full size,
Oh, okay.
5.
It'll be on a list.
For hamster mulch afterward.
Yeah.
All right.
This is nothing like this. Most of them are not, this is like handwritten.
So-
It has all the information on it and it's certified at the bottom.
And that's what they'll draw up.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
And
what
they'll
the
know what we
surveyor
need.
will- Yeah.
They know, they know. the drill.
Compliments on my map. I thought my map was
Oh my
pretty
Oh,
good.
very good for a hand.
I want to frame this.
We
I could
understand
skip a
that.
step without the architect.
We understand that Bert Winnie is retiring soon. so-
I'm not. Pretty little tree here.
Oh my God, this is crazy.
So
Okay.
everything goes through Nicole.
Okay,
The firm that you have knows the drill, but they may not be familiar with what was in the package when you went to the building.
okay. Could I have another
inspector.
copy of
I
that?
can send you
You
that.
could send me that by
absolutely.
email or-
Yeah.
or just
Yeah,
send
you can
everything
have
by
this.
email.
Yeah.
I'll
Do you
email
want
it.
this one?
You can have this one.
You want this?
There
Okay.
you go.
Even
See?
It even
I
has
like your
name on
emails every now and then. You can say hello.
it. But if
That
they
was
follow
their
that,
mail. Okay.
That was their mouth.
This is-
Oh, you're very sharp. That
that's gonna
chocolate.
Okay,
cost you
so-
$100.
The escrow is
The
enough
escrow
or do I
stays-
need more?
wear off in a few.
We hope not. Whatever we don't
It should be
use,
fine.
we refund to you. The escrow is used for 2 or 3 main things. One of them is for Liz to
So,
make an initial review. And the second major thing is for the decision, the final decision to be written. So I
okay,
can't tell you whether it will be more or less.
well, I gave 350.
That was the application.
That was
The
the
fee.
application
application,
fee.
so the escrow you don't have yet. I have the check with me.
Oh,
I thought you
So
meant,
yes, but we didn't get it yet.
so you
Okay.
can't leave until you
Yeah,
give us a
but-
Could I
check.
Oh,
just?
you
could I
said
just
you're
leave it?
gonna bring it.
Yeah,
You
because
said you were
on
gonna
Friday,
bring
no,
it to
my
the
sister,
meeting.
my sister.
Yeah.
So
brought
it's
it out.
spelled MAREN.
Yeah.
LI.
It's certified and sealed.
Apparently I was wrong
So
about
can I-
I forgot he said he was bringing it to the
Is it okay? Can I give it to you now and then?
You can airmail it back.
Yeah.
just like
Can
you
airmail
did.
it? There you go. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
This way, the
So we have the
escrow,
escrow.
because the 350 doesn't have to do with the escrow. That's just the
Correct.
application.
350.
So now we have the
That's
escrow.
just for the
350 just
pleasure
gets
of
you here.
meeting us.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I just want to
There
make
you go.
sure. So we got that. Should I get a receipt or I trust you guys?
You could
We're on
trust
tape.
us.
We're on tape. I don't want to take any more time. Is that
Better
all?
than a receipt.
We're on video.
No, there's only
To
one
like-
other thing.
to-
Smile, you're on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, so, oh my God.
Before, I'm
Oh my
gonna try
God.
and like make
I'm
you
gonna
move
hold
it
my
less
dad
on
right
this.
Are we gonna go
Yeah.
around the table?
Yeah.
All right, hold on one second.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
so
getting
nice.
ahead of myself.
Sorry.
I did say we'd go around the table, Patrick.
Pretty much all we need is the map, right?
Maren.
So on that EAF form that you did, that environmental assessment form, you should maybe get together with Nicole and maybe some of you guys or whatever. There's some things that are blank that you didn't fill out because you probably just didn't know what the
I
answer
wasn't,
was.
yeah, I wasn't.
I
sure.
wasn't sure of it, so
I
that'll,
would say that you should ask Mercury on Norton and Tiroli to do that.
to do
Yeah.
that for them, okay.
Yeah,
So
just
just,
they'll go right on the
Your
deed, see if they can get all the information they need.
right, so have those guys, just somebody do it so we don't end up with a letter from our consultant saying you need to fill it in. I just saved you $15 there, I think. Then my other question was, you got a little, I'm actually a neighbor of yours. I live on Upper Cherry
Oh.
Top. There's a little pond in back, behind the big pond that you made.
Yes,
Is that gonna be, just out of curiosity, still on your property, or is the line going right? It sort of looks like the line might be right
Yeah,
through it,
the
or?
line, like I said, I was waiting for the architect to come and play with that line a little bit because we have a little playroom. So it's probably gonna go more closer to the existing cabin, and all the ponds will be on the other
On the other
property.
property, yeah,
Because we have the hill and the view and then the water.
exactly.
So whatever you want, you want to look or you want.
Right.
You wanna swim.
Exactly. And then my
So
other
that's-
thought is, there's like, since I walk by all the time, where the new pond is, the one in front, is there really room for a cabin there? Or does it have to go sort of behind it? Just out of curiosity.
This should be,
There
you know,
should be.
according to me, you know, but there's plenty of room from, and that's why I plan to put the cabin kind of next to the pond, so I could have a deck kind of
And
into
going
the
in the
pond.
pond.
Control. That's my vision anyway.
Okay.
So you're moving in the new. cabin.
Oh, yeah. she-
Yeah, she's getting older. You're going fishing. You're stocking up.
I got the kids, so, but,
That was basically, it was mostly just to fill in the blank stuff to make sure you didn't.
okay. Yeah, I know I left one or two
Yeah,
out. I
exactly.
wasn't sure
Thanks, Mary.
which way to go.
Mark, you have anything?
My question was on the line, so I'm all set with that.
Okay. Zorian?
I'm okay.
I just think this
Anne
is,
Marie?
I'm just laughing. This is, the map is the best. Thank you.
Sam?
I'm good.
Okay. Lauren is the mayor of Cherry.
Oh.
Yeah.
Appointed and elected.
So clean up every year, is that you?
No, that's not me.
Okay.
So
Mayor, not
Mr.
the
Department of
public.
Public Works, it's up to you
Exactly.
to ride herd on your surveyor. And we won't be coming back to you to find out if you want to come back to see us, except to say, if you don't have any new information and a good map, you shouldn't come back to see us because you're just wasting your time.
Okay,
All right,
So
so
we'll
get
get-
this map
we'll
done.
get that certified map.
Yeah, we assume our applicants are adults and they know they want to get this done, and they'll let us know when they're ready to come.
Yes, we'll be in touch.
It's totally
Kristen's
unlikely
call.
that-
Thank you, everyone. Nice to meet
Yeah. Nice to
everyone.
meet you.
Have a
Thanks
great
for
night.
coming.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Tell your
Take
dad
care.
it's
See
so,
you again. I will.
that's so funny. You sound just like him. Oh my God. I've worked with this long.
Oh, that's funny.
That's funny.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They find out.
Yeah. His father didn't really, yeah, she was actually, yeah. she did.
Nice.
Okay,
That's funny.
the maladjustment
So funny.
project. Liz, are you going to join us?
Boy,
You're still here.
according to me, that is. my favorite
But he was
phrase.
honest about it. He was like.
Okay,
That
guys,
was the best
we're
answer.
making good time.
Yes, we are. Oh my goodness, how many more? Just-
Ladies and guys.
Yeah, but there's-
So here's what I'd like to
Hi,
do.
Liz.
Hello, everybody.
Do we have more maps?
Oh, we don't have any actual scene.
Do we have new maps?
No, we didn't have new maps because we didn't have the October 25th
Why don't you
meeting,
pass
so
out
I
the other
wanted to
Yeah. we need
touch
maps.
base with all of you before I went
Also
and
on
made
the-
another
on the
revision.
drive, PDF.
Some
Sorry.
revisions.
Anybody else need it?
I have a block of
The last
comments
one's in
and
there.
Anybody else need it?
It's the same map. It hasn't changed.
All right, so let me just summarize. Everything that we've asked for from the applicant, we've gotten with the exception, well, we do have it now, but you probably didn't get a chance to review it. The wetland study, the T&E study, not travel and entertainment, but threatened and endangered species. And another thing that's still missing, but the applicant acknowledges this, is the grading study. So that will come hopefully for the next meeting. So we've gotten all that. We have the heat map. There's a copy of it right there. It's also on your drive. I reviewed.
Not very hot at all.
I reviewed the answer. There were two major well, now there's three, but there were two major letters. One was from the board to the applicant. That was answered to my satisfaction. The second letter was from, which is called Liz's first letter, was sent by Liz. Heather responded to it. It's in the, and she did it, took Liz's comments and responded to each comment. And that's primarily what I'd like to talk about tonight, is the comments to Liz's letter number one. You and I will talk about letter number two at some future date. So I don't think we need to go through it because we just got it. And I think we'll answer most of the questions
That's fine.
tonight.
There is a block that I think will save the applicant some time. So
Okay, so
when
we'll
you're
talk
ready
about
for
that.
that, we'll talk.
Okay, so the letter that I'm talking about is an undated letter from M&E.
Oh, there is no date. I'm so
No, there is
sorry.
no date. And I mentioned that in my summary that I sent you guys Sunday morning. But if you could find it on it starts with, we have prepared the items requested in the tour letter dated September 17th, which I just mentioned. And then they also answered the first review letter from CPL. And I'm not going to go point by point. I'm hoping everybody reviewed this. I had a couple of questions and comments. One was on the issue of lot 3, if you're looking at your map, and the driveway that the applicant wants to have that's bordering the lot line. CP had recommended that the shared driveway just continue to loop around to the house on lot 3. I reviewed that with, or rather Heather reviewed that with the applicant. The applicant doesn't want to do that. It's not crossing any DEC wetlands. It does cross, or it comes very close to ACOE wetlands. And there is quite a bit of standing water in some of those places. But I personally don't have a problem with having a separate driveway to that house on lot number 3. If I was the guy living in house number 3, I wouldn't want to have to go past house 1, house 2 to get to my house. It's kind of torturous. Second item that I have a concern with, or I had a concern with, and we have a letter from Barry on it, as well as I think Brian Drum, has to do with the positioning of the septic system on lot number 1. My question, why is this so close to the wetlands? And essentially what Barry is telling us, and Mr. Drum is telling us, is that the rules and the regs, particularly for the Board of Health, but allows it, as long as it's not standing water, allows the septic system to be within that 100-foot that we're used to applying when it comes to the DEC setback. So I'm frankly okay with it, because in that particular wetlands up on the top, it's called wetlands number 2. There is no standing water. Now, I don't know how much water was there in the last 2 weeks after the
The whole
torrential.
place was standing water, the road, the front,
Yeah.
across the street, place turns into
A pool.
pool. So that driveway number, you're right, it doesn't go across the new driveway, but at some point it'll be canoeing if it keeps getting raining like that.
For lot number 3. Yeah.
Especially if nobody cleans their dishes.
I agree. So I'm okay with where the septic is on lot number 1. The only item that, well, there were 1 or 2, but the item that we got pushback from the applicant around, the applicant's representative, was in some way to set aside the lands in the back of each lot in some sort of conservation easement, similar to what we did with the Cusack property. And I have no comment on that one way or the other. I'd like to hear what the board has to say with that. And I don't know whether I'm up to number 4 or what, but the threatened and endangered species report, which I did read before coming here, is primarily timber rattlesnakes. And the expert, whose name escapes me right now,
Michael Nowicki.
Nowicki, thank you, indicated that he's not concerned with there being timber rattlers in the area of disturbance because of the lack of exposed rock in those particular areas. Whether or not I agree with that, he's the expert. I've seen them in lots of other areas, but the primary point that he made is if there's going to be any disturbance between certain dates, you need to have barriers in place to prevent the timber rattlers from coming through as they go on their journey. And I think the time frame was some end of April through beginning of October, something
Yeah,
like
it
that.
was
You know,
during the
after that,
summer
they're in
months, yeah, when they
hibernation.
would be migrating.
So that's just
yeah.
a reminder that obviously would be a condition of.
And that would
approval.
just be during construction. we're talking
Yeah.
about, Yeah.
All right, so that,
I was like, just to make a little,
They actually.
kind of like
look
deer
them up.
fencing, yeah.
so that's all the comments that I have. Sam, do you want to start with your comments?
I do not have a lot of comments that have not already been covered elsewhere. So no additional comments at this time.
Okay, Anne Marie?
Just seems like there's a lot of water going on the lot one, you know.
Well, the house is, at least
I mean, the
12
elevation
feet
of the house,
above
yeah.
the house.
It's
And,
just the driveway.
well, that's an existing driveway, so
It
that's
is,
been there. I mean, the spur is not, obviously, but that's been in use.
All right.
However
that's-
many
yeah,
years,
That's what I was
yeah.
asking about. Okay.
Zorian?
Yeah, I had a question about that wetland delineation letter report.
Mhm.
It's just describe everything, doesn't make any, just describes everything, doesn't make any conclusions. Is it, they agree with engineering solution?
They
or
said
not?
there was no DEC wetlands.
Right,
that
but
was
he
the
didn't make any
conclusion.
conclusions. He
That's the
basically-
But that was.
Conclusion is there's nothing to worry
Okay.
about.
Okay.
I mean, I think I'm more concerned with
No, I don't
wetlands.
think it was
There's nothing there to discuss.
stated clearly, he just saying, this land is goes there, this land is goes there. He doesn't say anything, that's what I remember reading.
Well, I actually got a little bit out of him saying there's no DEC wetlands, and then I got something out of the DEC who actually said from,
Yeah, do you see?
from his vantage
that
point,
Email, yeah.
he
Yeah.
thinks that wetland number one
Mhm.
continues off in the direction of other wetlands on other people's properties,
Right.
and it probably is more than 12 acres or 12.4. But since it's not marked as that, and there's no disturbance in that wetland area, and we're 100 feet from that wetland number one anyway, with any construction, I'm not going to lose.
Yeah,
sleep
no,
over it.
I understand, but this
I am
letter
concerned-
was kind of,
This does bring up my concern, and Mark,
Fine.
I'll get to you in a second. It does bring up my concern about that is an important wetland. There's no doubt about it, that wetland number one.
Right.
And I know you're 100 feet away from it in terms of any disturbance. But what about the notion of having a conservation easement similar to Cusack?
Well, I discussed this with the client. They're happy with saying no further subdivision. So they're not looking to further subdivide, but they really don't want to have any further deed restrictions on the land. They may want to use some of this area for agriculture. They may want to put up a hunting stand. They may want to
They may want
use
to
that
put a what kind of a
property,
stand?
like a hunting
Hunting
stand
stand.
or something like that. I mean, the restrictions that
hunt?
were in the,
Oh,
yeah, they do.
Oh, yeah.
They're very interested in
Okay.
hunting this parcel, so they're really not that interested in doing any further development, but they may want to put up an accessory structure that they're allowed to do, where a conservation easement would disallow that. So I feel by saying, no further subdivision of these parcels would, I think, take care of most of the concerns that this land may be developed heavily at a later time.
What about an agreement that while they're not designated DEC, that wetlands number one, which is 9.7, I think, but extends into other, what about a voluntary 100-foot setback from wetlands number one? Where there wouldn't be any disturbance within that 100 feet?
Well, if you look, the existing garage and apartment is within 100 feet of that and on lot two. And if they're going to try to access the level lands on the other side of the wetlands, say if they wanted to put in a woods road or a farm road to use this land here, they couldn't do that
Mhm.
if they had any kind of.
Is that standing water?
No, this is well, there's springs, but it's not standing water. You can see that it's all sloping.
There's vernal
so
pond, there's vernal.
There's
ponds
probably
up there.
vernal ponds somewhere
I
along
mean, the
this,
whole
but not
front
in
is
this.
just not usable. It is,
Wet,
it is
Yeah.
wet.
underground,
It is
underwater.
underground, underwater. We can slice it and dice it. The DEC stops it at this millimeter or not. The whole front, I mean, wetlands don't sit there and say, oh yeah, I'm not moving any farther out of here than you
Yeah.
told me to do. The whole front of that is, which is why it was poorly farmed, which is why the across the street, Abe Warish's farm is unusable
Farmland.
farmland. It's
Yeah.
only dairy cows because it's too much of a swamp, which is the continuation right across the street of this entire swampaceous infrastructure that we have here. So I agree with you that they're gonna find that they can't put the accessory structure or can't do any of that stuff because they're gonna have to bring in gobs of fill. If they're gonna do it, you might as well just, they're diluting themselves. What I'm saying is we keep, there's an elephant in the room here, which is that is a great big swamp to say, oh yeah, we might want to put this there or that there. They're not gonna be able to.
But we're talking about this wetland up here. We're not talking about this down here.
But the whole like gang of it, you shouldn't be putting stuff in the wetlands. That's what we're supposed to do, is because we're supposed to be protecting the health, safety, and welfare of our town and respecting our comprehensive plan. I go through this ad nauseum, and we say we protect our water. Water isn't just that it comes down from here. Water to go into streams and wetlands comes from underground. As you get closer to it, and if the septic does overflow after a while, they start failing, or you put pesticides, or you put fertilizer, or you start putting stuff in there, that goes into this big swamp. That swamp goes into the Mombakas. The Mombakas goes into the Rondout. The Rondout goes into the Hudson. And this is how the whole chain of events starts. Because we say, this is okay. I can just do it this one time. And this is, so I think it should be, they bought it. They should have bought it eyes wide open that they were buying a swamp, that it should be a restriction on the property that they should respect. They bought a very swampy piece of property. They got beautiful places for home sites. They can still do that. But in my opinion, this should be cordoned off to something, because this is the beginning of the entire food chain of our water system. That's my pontification on water in town of Chromestone.
Mark?
I know we talked about the lot 3 driveway, and you mentioned it to the owners about a shared driveway, and they were totally against it.
Completely, 100% against it. I
Just
mean, and
because
not only that, it would also bisect this lot, you know, to have another driveway coming across here. I mean, it would be a longer driveway. It would be more disturbance than what we have proposed here. So again, I don't think this tiny crossing is that egregious that.
I guess I was looking at it as taking the driveway to lot 2 through the Woods Road and just wrapping it through, but I see what you're saying is.
Yeah,
is
no,
kind of
he's
off
not
that.
gonna wanna have another person driving by his house. And again, I want to stress, we're talking about nearly 20-acre lots here. These aren't postage stamps. We're talking about 2 additional houses on a total of 60 acres.
I don't have issues with where the home sites are. I just have some concerns with how wet the front of the property is. And in fact, it's so wet. I know that Maren mentioned a canoe, but it's more like a motorboat. Yeah. I mean, the water was over the road. You
Well,
couldn't get to
we also
Styler
got
Bridge
a
Drive.
tremendous amount of water
and
too.
which could
And
happen tomorrow.
nobody,
But
I don't know if
it-
nobody's noticed, the town hasn't been maintaining many of the ditches either. So everything's been.
But no matter
overflowing.
what, this is always, it is flooded since.
It's flooded right now.
It's flooded right now. I've been here 20 years. It's been flooded.
It's been there since high
flooded
school.
since high school. This
Yeah.
thing is flooded all the.
And I don't
time.
doubt that there is flooding through, I mean, we show wetlands crossing the
So
road,
the
but there
whole
is.
point goes back to what Rick brought up, is saying we would like or I agree with you, Rick, a concession, a conservation of that wetland area in front, that's delineated. They at least know that it's there.
In the front and the back?
It's
Or
more
the
the.
the front is the concern.
The front is
Yeah,
the
front is the
concern.
bigger
But
concern.
the letter was from Liz for southwest side.
What's the, I mean, I guess.
Southwest, not the front.
I'm
So-
confused as to
The
what you
road
mean
side.
by a conservation. I mean, we could say no further development
say,
other
I
than
would-
these
Yeah,
approved
I-
septic
you need to-
systems,
Gonna
you
ask,
know, in a 100-foot buffer versus CUSAC conservation easement deeded
Signs,
signs.
right.
I mean, what are we talking about here?
No, it's more exactly what you just said, to make sure that it says no further
No-
development.
Right,
Did you accept a 100-foot buffer? The guy
I
who's
mean-
already got the house is already in it.
I don't think the guy
Mine is
can develop it, but which is
No,
what Maren
but-
is saying, you know, to have a conservation easement is probably to their advantage.
No, it's a lot of deed restrictions. It's not to their advantage
Not
at
a
all.
conservation
I mean,
easement, but a note on the map.
A note on
and
the map,
a
a conservation
delineation of-
area.
area, thank you.
Why don't we just say no further development within the 100-foot buffer without having this be some elaborate conservation easement with meets and bounds and, you
Why
know,
don't
what
we-
we had to do for Cusack was quite involved,
So
you know?
why don't you see if the app, what I think I'm hearing, and Patrick, I'll get to you in a second. What
I was
think
gonna say I'm
hearing-
finished, Rick, thank you.
No, I would come back to you. What I think I'm hearing is all the wetlands, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 100-foot voluntary, no building, no disturbance.
Well, kind of like we did with Burn, where they didn't have a formal.
I think that's fine. I'm okay
Easement,
with
they
that.
just had several different restrictions,
Right.
you know, for the Indiana bat, no. I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop.
No, that's fine.
Is that,
I think that's
that captured,
realistic.
Maren?
I just don't think they'll ever be able to do
Yeah,
anything there because
exactly.
if it's underwater.
If you were to do
need a
that,
rowboat.
I think that goes a long way to reminding everybody about protecting those wetlands.
That's totally fine, as
Which
long as we
goes
can
to
keep the driveway and
number-
the septic
The
as.
number one, that one that's there, I mean, no, that's okay, I
No,
don't mind the
that's
driveway
fine.
coming in. I got a problem with that, that septic is at some point is gonna go into all of that wetland water. Why can't he tweak the house back more toward the stone wall and the septic back more?
Have more specific space.
Have more, exactly, have more space instead of putting it right down where, I mean, because once again, it's sort of baloney to say like, this is exactly the wetland, if you go the
I don't
wetland,
think
it's all
Do you
wet.
think he cares
The-
where
the-
that homestead is?
He does, I mean, but these people are very particular, this is where we wanted them. This is where the soils were good. This is approved by the Ulster County Health Department. They've seen the plans, they know where the wetland is. I mean, this is a permittable this is under the jurisdiction of the health department. They're fine with it. If you're not fine with it, I'm not sure where, I don't think you're the planning board.
I think we have to, we have no jurisdiction of where it goes.
As
For better
long
or-
as it's right.
For better or worse, if it was a DEC wetlands, that would be the end of the
I
story.
do like the idea of
But if we can say
agreeing to
a
that.
voluntary 100-foot, no construction, no disturbance,
And no further subdivision.
and no
If they
further
put that into the
subdivision,
deed, no further subdivision, yes.
I'm okay. I think that's good. Patrick?
I think you guys covered it.
All right.
You don't have a better water aquifer speech than I do?
No.
There's a lot of good water up in Upper Sharon.
And Rick, will that voluntary
I sold
clause about
my
keeping
boat.
it in the
Hang on,
conservation,
hang on a
that
second.
voluntary, will that pass down to maybe the next
Yes,
owner?
it'll be on the map.
It would be on the map, yeah.
Be on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's just, you know.
Without the stakes. Nobody wants to look at the stakes.
I-
I agree.
No, I agree with that, but.
So
still.
I made my comments about this package. Is there anything else in this package? Again, this package being Liz's comments and Heather's responses to it. Any other comments on any of these items? Everybody okay with rattlesnakes?
Well, what
That's up
Liz,
to you
what
guys.
Liz said in
It
her
was- it
second
was
note,
known-
I would
known
agree
in
what
the
Liz said in her second
record,
note, because exactly, that has to get incorporated in some of this, putting up the fences or whatever, it needs to be part of the
Yep.
decision and et cetera.
That was part of Nowicki's recommendation, depending upon.
Right,
the
but we hadn't
disturbance.
addressed if we would say, yes, we like his recommendation, or, and Liz addressed that in her.
And he may
note.
have the template, like
Right.
the detail and all
Right.
that, that will make your life easier.
So this may be the point where Liz, you wanted to make some comments.
Well, you guys have pretty much, guys and gals, discussed the main, issue that I had for question marks, which had to do with consider delineating areas to be preserved, provide narrative about what's intended for conservation area. In later reviews, plan notation be included to describe protection for these areas. Those are the main question marks I had for the board. And then there is one more thing. Because we're kind of getting close and having a lot of more detail on the plan, been through the checklist, even though I know
Thank you.
we're not supposed to
We
have
like this. man.
this letter number 2. I think that with some of these protections added and a few more comments addressed, we're in pretty good shape. So I had a comment last time that basically read, upon revision to address the comments above, about the need for grading and drainage, which you've acknowledged needs to be done. I understand why you waited on that. The plans will be reviewed in more detail for the subdivision design provisions in 125-22. And I feel like the board has looked at this and given plenty of feedback, and we've talked about conservation areas. I don't know that my office needs to go over subdivision designs.
Subdivision one,
Design standards in section 125-22.
unless there's something we forgot.
I'll take
I
a
don't
quick
think so.
look, but I
Take
feel
a
I would
quick look.
only do a cursory look, but I really
I
feel
think we
that,
touched everything.
you know, it's 3 driveways. I'm sorry, a new driveway off of one shared driveway, a new driveway. Now we're talking about these buffers. Except for grading and some stormwater management practices. I think we're pretty far along.
Okay.
The ag
So-
statement, did we say that?
You did say that, and
There isn't, I don't see one.
I feel like I've checked that and there
Well,
either
I
isn't
know it's-
any or I totally spaced it. That's
Abe
entirely-
Warish's farm is still under agricultural
Is it?
assessment.
Yeah. so
I
then
tried
you
to
probably-
measure
They're still
across the
collecting the
street to
cheaper
see if they were
taxes.
more than 500, these little.
For this.
That
little
line
spot
guys?
next.
Yes,
Yeah.
for this
I
tax year
couldn't tell,
only.
they're like
Not
448 feet deep approximately, which is close to 500, and that's why I raised the question.
Yeah.
So that's a matter of,
What does the ag data statement accomplish?
You have to do it.
Oh, I agree with
Yeah.
you, because it would be nice if Ag and Markets ever made a comment about when you send the whole thing.
It's kind of
Yeah.
like, you
Okay.
don't want to do it, you don't want, it serves any purpose, but you have to do it.
Okay, I'm fine with doing that.
Is there any ag
I was
across
always
the
just,
street?
I'm like, what, where
There's
does this
ag
go?
Yes, there's
I'm
ag
sure-
across the street.
well, then one of the things was to put notation on the plan, you know, acknowledging.
Oh, the
these
right
Well,
little
the
to
farm-
farm,
business.
the
They
farm
can't go
smell
start
and they
fussing
have
about
smelly farm
farming.
stuff.
That's
That's-
true.
yeah.
Vibration, noise,
Chicken
Um,
poop stinks.
smells.
We need do we need pull-offs? Did we establish that?
Well, there was some.
We're over 500 feet, right?
This one needs, I think this one's over 500 feet.
What about
It's
this
about
one?
500 feet.
Can't you use the
to-
driveway as a
to lot
pull-off?
one. That's what I was wondering. I mean, we can use the driveway to the new house on lot one as a
Okay.
How
pull
long
off.
is it from here to here? Is it 1,000?
Probably, I
something?
don't know. I didn't do a profile for
Right.
this whole thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't have my
Well,
car, I
anyway,
don't have
one
any
or
of my
two.
things. But my point being, do we need to put pull-offs on
shared
an
driveway.
existing
Not
driveway?
using.
I could see like you requesting something here, but
You're thinking maybe use that driveway and
As a
expand it to
pull-off.
make a pull-off.
Yes.
yeah.
The board's
That-
okay with that, why
I
not?
mean, that's close enough at
That's fine.
500 feet.
What
We
about
should
the-
refer it,
disturbance.
we should refer it to the fire department, obviously, anyway. for
And
their-
generally, we just make sure that it's 20 feet wide at
Right.
that portion and that has the 20.
You have that note?
Yeah, but this is the whole point on this one.
Yeah.
This goes back to the wetland. It isn't like it can pull off a little bit on the side of that driveway, because your fire
You're
truck
gonna need gatos.
ain't going anywhere. Exactly. Just
What
have
about
gatos
the-
come with you.
What about the
That's
right.
driveway
Mention
for lot number 3? How long is that?
That one
Probably not
will need
useful.
one. This is
Get the
about
fire out, but not
750 feet, if I remember
So you're gonna
correctly.
need one
So
somewhere.
we'll
there,
need
too.
one along the way.
At least you got plenty of water for the fire.
There's a lot of
Just
flat
stick
spots there.
those.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem at all.
Siphoned out of the ground.
Siphon it.
So
And did
still
did I
just
mention
one
this
on
already? Road maintenance agreement?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, you need that.
There's no homeowners association, but just a
A road maintenance agreement. Yeah.
That's it.
And you need to get, we have the form. And then Mary, once you fill it out.
She's done this.
you've
We're
got-
on
you've-
that. Well,
you've
you
got-
wanted to update that template, and I don't know if that ever happened, but we'll talk about that off the book.
What else? Board? Anything else?
Side distances, it's already, side distances, already done.
I mean, it's a pretty
Site.
straight
It's a straight
run.
road.
I mean,
There was a letter.
is that really necessary? We're looking at over, what is this? 200 feet. I got 200 feet, another 500 feet of straight from the existing
Yeah.
driveway to the corner. And same thing
I-
here.
I'm just-
That's not even
I'm
a corner
happy
though.
to
I
That
just
put
that
wrote
those-
still
down
goes
whatever-
straight on.
And
Yeah,
it
yeah,
still
yeah.
goes
Yeah,
straight
yeah,
on, yeah.
That road is
So
straight. You
here-
can land
Yeah,
an
that
airplane
one
there.
is exactly
So do
pretty.
you not need site
I don't think
distance
we
No.
need.
at the
site-
shared driveway or that one? Or the lot?
No, because if you can see here, the road still continues on for at
Right,
least
okay.
another
So
1500
no site
feet.
distance?
I don't
No,
think we need
I
it.
don't think so.
That's
Yeah.
helpful.
You can land an airplane on that road.
Anything else?
It just took a plow. and
All right,
straight
so-
into
Give 'em any
the
more
What
road.
about
idea.
profiles?
Mark, don't give him
Driveway
any more
profile.
ideas.
I can give you
Until the-
profiles, yeah, that's no
Okay.
problem,
We should do, yeah, just in case, yeah.
just to demonstrate that it is 10% or less.
You're just ready for
So at the
compliance.
next meeting, we'll have a discussion, and it should be quick, on the wetland study, on the rattlesnake study,
Mhm.
and on the grading plan.
Does that mean we can't set the public hearing for
I think
next
we
month?
probably could set the public
That would
hearing.
be wonderful.
Do we have every,
What?
the wetland study?
Additional?
Well, I told you what the wetland study said. We don't
Yeah.
need any more discussion of that. The
I don't
rattlesnake
need it.
thing, the biggest thing is the barriers.
Mhm.
Now, the grading study,
Well,
We don't
I
have
mean,
that
the
done yet.
grading plan, it's just, I mean, you can see
gonna be
from
pretty
here,
good.
it's less than 10% anyway, and the grading plan would just demonstrate that. And the profiles would demonstrate that, so.
okay. I have no problem setting a public hearing. You're all right with that?
We can keep it open as long as,
Yeah.
as long as you
Right, you
want.
don't have to close it.
Yeah, let's
What
get
about
it-
it?
let's get it started.
I'll entertain a motion to set the
But
public
thi-
hearing.
Well, this
I
is
make a
the
motion for
grading
that.
plan would show you
For,
exactly how the driveway's gonna be
okay,
graded,
okay.
but
Alright,
you
I
can
made
see
a
from
motion.
here that it's less than, sorry.
Mark made a motion,
I second
second, to set the public hearing for December 13th.
December 13th.
Okay,
So if
And-
we do an ag statement, you have to send it to the county also, so there's some stuff that has to be done before.
It does, you can get started, doesn't mean you can
Right.
close.
We can
it
open
next
it, we
month.
just won't close it.
Right, we can open it, but because usually we used to say, and then make a motion to send this to
Everybody in the.
the county and send it to the
This
fire.
might be
and-
within the exception agreement though, just because it's only 3 lots, I'm not sure,
isn't it
even
5
though it's
lots?
ag.
Well, if
or
it
more?
doesn't need an ag data statement, then it doesn't need to go to the county, right?
Right, but I think it does need ag,
Yeah.
that is farmed across the road
All right, so it'll have to go to the
definitively
county.
and assessed as a farm,
Okay.
not even just farm, fake farming.
Fire
Farming,
department,
so you don't have to
county.
pay the taxes.
Does that have to go to ag?
Thanks,
They're
Mark.
gonna change
So if
that.
you do an ag data statement, you gotta send it to the county.
Okay.
We'll
I
just
waited
fill out-
30 days before it comes back.
They're gonna change
Do you want?
Well, in order to get their curb cuts, they have to go to the highway.
Yeah, so,
So,
okay.
We still have a motion, right?
the worst.
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
worst
you
one.
guys have to vote on that.
So
we have a motion on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, passed, so ordered. All right, so the people we have to notify, the county, planning board, fire department.
I think you're gonna have to, you might have to look up for SHPO because
I did look up.
what about, I think, I don't,
Yeah, I think.
It
I
might
would
be
have
that
raised that either.
No.
might be
Hang
just
on.
far enough.
We're all digging. I'm like,
Did you?
I
did
got
you
that.
send
I got
EAF map? Did you submit yours on the EAF mapper?
Oh, yeah, I used that.
Because you have
Yeah.
Hartilius's
Oh.
property, but it might be far enough away across.
Is
Hmm,
is
hang on,
Abe's
hang
house
on.
not considered historic?
Abe's house is in historic, yeah.
It's not.
It's not.
It's just,
No, it's all.
it's 500 feet.
It
within
should
the-
be,
Nonsense,
it
yeah.
should be because it's
Or
Abe,
no historic
exactly.
buildings.
That's
Right.
what I call it.
Yeah, I didn't see
don't know,
anything.
but I know.
Yeah, there's nothing on
It's
SHPO.
not, and I'm looking at the
Okay.
EAF mapper blank, and it's not,
Okay, so no shit.
the historic isn't showing, is no, and archaeological is no,
Okay,
Okay,
in terms
cool.
of archaeological sensitivity.
No, I cannot do 500 feet in my head because if you go to the end where Baker hits Cherrytown, there is a house right there.
That's her.
That's Hartilius,
That's her.
right?
But
That's,
that's,
That
That
is,
is quite a ways away.
that's,
you're right,
that's
exactly.
2,000 feet.
I
away.
can't do this stuff in my head.
It's a
I mean, I
long
know what
ways.
500 looks like.
so Heather, I think you got,
If I get you
You
the
got
ag
some
data
work-
statement tomorrow morning, can we get it off to the county and get that 30-day clock ticking so that
If you
To
guys
the
that help
county?
if you
things?
guys vote to do that.
we have to vote on the send it to the county?
Yep.
Yep.
I moved to
Entertain a
refer to the
motion.
county pending the ag data statement.
Sam,
Tomorrow morning.
I
second,
make a
Patrick,
second.
Patrick, did
What
you
the
second?
thing is-
I seconded.
Madam second,
Because we always send-
Do we have to do that also to send it to the fire department?
we don't need a motion for that.
No, we can just,
No.
but Nicole, you should send it
She's
for
gonna
the
send it to
driveway
the
and
fire
that
department.
stuff.
All in favor of sending this
Aye.
all to the county?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay,
That's one thing, that is, go with that. Nice, I'm not off.
the next
I
meeting.
know, I know,
Haven't done
I know what the
Excel file.
next step is as far as a hearing. In terms of moving things along, does the board want to see another submittal or not? Just wait. until
No, I don't see a
December.
need for another submittal.
Oh, well, you
And
want the grading plan.
Yeah,
Well, in the grading plans, yeah, you have, I'm sorry, yes, the grading plans, we would want your engineer to take a look at that first, but.
and I
other than
would
that,
say on, there's some of those typical
I mean, there's a
Just
bunch of
checklist
things.
items, there's a bunch of checklist items you should do on the last one that Liz sent, but they're checklisty. As per prior comments, label the owners and owner subdividers,
Wooded
wooded-
areas to be retained.
wooded areas to be retained, just.
I mean, it's everything outside of the limit of disturbance.
Way
We
to
do a little.
communicate that.
Yeah, just put it on the map, yeah, just put it on the map and
Disturbance is the
say that
limit of
it's.
Disturbance, yeah.
Yep,
Write it down.
exactly.
Is that in letter number 2 now?
And the one, exactly, like label the proposed driveway, what's just, it's a lot of
Because you had asked to do the
Checklist
checklist.
issue.
the checklist
So I
type,
did
so
those.
there's a whole checklist stuff that should be checked.
Yeah, speaking of checklisty things, we're not putting the planning board signature on every,
No, I didn't ask for it on all sheets in these comments.
No,
okay,
just the-
one
just
of
the
them
first page.
was, yeah, okay,
But the checklist is very important.
yes.
I think of the Cusack decision where we had like 15 different.
Like regarding lot dimensions, label the resulting front lot, just check, just cross through and check
There's a
them
bunch of
all.
stuff that I don't think is really, yeah. And I think some of it you were kind of, I knew that you were thinking strategically about not doing the grading yet until you had this conversation.
Yeah, exactly, because I don't want to do multiple
I get it.
revisions of the same map. Because I think it confuses everybody. So what version is this? Yeah. Library and pages, I don't have some. If they're not on the Ulster
Okay.
County parcel viewer, they're not there.
Okay.
So, yeah, I can
Okay.
get those. You have the Department of Health approvals. We're not doing a homeowners
Oh, we already
association.
have those? Those are submitted?
Yeah, they were submitted, I think 2 back. Deed reference on the map, we could start doing that. Reference to a survey, we luckily did a survey. I just want to point out too, I don't know if you guys realize this, there's a difference between a certified survey and a subdivision map. There,
Yeah.
so, because I noticed last time you were saying, oh, and you need to have that map certified. I'm like, but if it's for subdivision, that's a different kind of map. So,
No, the
this-
certification is just for lot lines, that's what we call it on a lot line. We
Okay.
certify a lot line.
but not a certified survey map then,
Exactly, it's
okay,
just our term
Our
that we
term,
certify.
all
We're
right,
not like making a decision or approving, we're certifying.
Doing it.
So
okay,
It's just for the lot lines and natural subdivisions that applies.
all right, so not a certified
Right,
survey,
exactly.
okay.
Should the board authorize direct contact? Would that help or not?
Yeah, that's a good idea to go through the
Just saying,
checklist
it's up
together.
to you guys.
You need us to authorize that?
You don't need to vote on
What?
that.
When
You
Heather.
need us to authorize?
I don't remember if it was authorized on this thing or not, but yeah.
I'll
usually
accept
like
them. I entertain a motion to authorize Liz and Heather to talk.
I make that motion, you're allowed to talk to each other.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's the end of that.
Say nice thing in
Nice to
the
meet ya.
sandbox.
For the 308th.
All right, let's.
Thank
go.
you.
That's it, I think for that one. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you, Heather. All right, Nadine,
Happy birthday.
Wake up over there.
still awake?
Happy birthday.
Thanks, Eddie.
No.
I don't talk about birthdays.
You getting this? All right, so
Twenty-one. 21, it's after 21. No birthdays.
just give me a second.
Hey, I'm old enough that it's after 18.
Sorry.
Exactly.
That's my hair.
Yeah.
All right,
Ready,
thank you so much.
ready.
All right, so hi, Nadine, how are you?
Hi, good.
I just want to go back to our subdivision. For to the bit around the conservation subdivision.
I'm sorry to
this
interrupt
is-
you, but-
This is Andrew Davis from our office.
Yeah, okay.
Nice to
Hi.
meet Oh, you weren't here last
I
time.
wasn't.
And the reason I want to do this is just to bring us back to where I think we're at we spent some time, thanks to Sam, talking about what process should be followed in preparing, working through the conservation subdivision. And the first step, and it's in 125, if anybody wants to look, 125-23L, L1, it goes through the applicant presenting all of the items that constitute the environment in that area. So call it an environmental map, which I
Do you
think
have the maps that
we will in
while
a
you're
second.
talking?
Environmental map outlining where the wooded areas are, where the ponds are, where the wetlands are, where the rivers, streams are, all the things that one would expect you'd like to see some preservation of, and I'm calling it conservation elements. So I think that's been done. So L1 has been done. We
So
have
I
the
think
data.
just, if I could just point that out, right, because that was talked about, that was part of the comments that we got from CPL. So the sheet 1 of 2 that we submitted is just an existing conditions resource map. It outlines the section that for the site analysis. And we do have some red comments on there based on our conversation and some additional information. So some of the things that we know that we still have to do is the tree location. Now, I know we discussed it, but since it was a workshop, there was no motion made as far as limiting the location of the trees to the disturbance areas. Basically waiving not to have to do it in the wetlands or the steep slopes where we're not disturbing. So that is one thing that, for the board to discuss and make a motion on this evening so that we can move forward with that. And on that same line, as far as the sketch plan, because we do have to lay out the areas that are disturbing so that the surveyor can lay it out and then locate it. But so the trees are one, and that's one of the things that we need movement on. I know there was some controversy with the visual and the view shed analysis. So that is something that is not incorporated in this yet because we're not 100% sure that it will be required. And then one of the other things, two more, some of the existing features as far as stone walls, that sort of thing. Again, we are planning on when we're getting the trees in the disturbance areas to getting that information on the interior of this plan from the surveyor. And then the next thing would be the archaeological phase 1. And also we did submit it to Joe Diamond outlining our disturbance areas, and we need to mark out the road so that he can look at those areas where we're putting the road and not just kind of willy-nilly over 93 acres.
So
So based on that,
have-
and they're highlighted on that sheet 1 of 2, right? We put that section of the code on there and highlighted that, so
Okay.
we're not trying to.
So
hide
that's
anything.
the larger version of what we saw when we went on our walk.
And with a little bit more information,
Okay.
we added additional information that was also asked for as far as adjoining owners. We did add this location map that shows the 2-mile radius of the site. So that is kind of clear, like what roads, what's there, what's not there, so where the site is in general. So
So what I would call all of this is the elements of environmental elements are on that map. There are some things that are still missing, but we know that they're coming. So that almost satisfies L1. L2 talks about, and we've done a little bit of this, but now we have to launch into steps A through D. Step 2 in this section talks about walking the site. And then based upon the elements, the conservation elements, and having walked the site, have a discussion about where the road should be, where the house location should be. Of course, you have all sorts of things like what will perk, what doesn't perk, but knowing what the environmental elements are, does the board have any comments about the potential layout of physical structures, houses, septic, road, driveway. And so we can have that discussion. And we could include in there things like visual. I know I made the comment on my walk that, gee, nobody's gonna see this from Mohawk or Minnewaska. What I was forgetting, for example, is, yeah, but what will they see from Lucas Avenue? That's part of the visual analysis. It's a major street in Rochester,
And it's a scenic byway.
It
Yeah.
is.
4455.
Well, yeah.
No,
So-
not 44.
Lucas.
45 isn't even in the
Lucas
2
is a
miles.
No,
scenic part of
Lucas
the
is a
scenic
scenic
byway.
byway.
Yeah.
Oh, is that, okay, I'm sorry, I
Yes,
thought you were
it's a
saying,
scenic
and the scenic. byway.
No, Lucas is. the
Is a
scenic byway.
scenic byway. So what I'd like to have now is a discussion on the part of the board. We'll go around the room. I'll start with Patrick. And comments about what you saw relative to the conservation areas, the connectivity of those conservation areas, and you're looking at a much more elaborate or blown up map relative to the physical structures that might be placed on the map.
I'm just gonna add that,
driveways.
that this plan, and I know we have a smaller one out there, just to orient everybody where we are proposing currently to put the houses.
Right.
Again, subject to some other things, but I know that we stood in the locations of these houses during the site visit. So I just wanted to kind of remind people, and then, if we needed to refer to this
And
again.
the other thing I want to remind everybody of, one of the purpose of the conservation subdivision is, my purpose in having this discussion is not to limit the number of houses that have been proposed. Because if we propose that a house goes away in this area for whatever reason, it could go in another area. There's still plenty of field area available. And one of the elements of a conservation subdivision is that the applicant is supposed to be able to apply for a little bit greater density in terms of numbers of structures in lieu of giving up this conservation areas as common conservation space. So, we're not talking about, oh, it's too many houses. Maybe it's the same number of houses, they just need to be in different spots.
And I like
And I
to
don't
just,
know, I'm not going to say that I've made my mind up. I want to hear from the board how they've made their mind up, or what they'd like to see, or what they believe ought to move around to satisfy the intent of this, which is to do a really good job in terms of preserving what's environmentally sensitive.
yeah, and we just want to remind the board too about the comprehensive plan and the language in the comprehensive plan as far as visual and the location of the homes not really being in the center of fields, that most of the homes are located just on the edge of the wood lines, in some clearings, and or on the other side of some wood lines between the clearings and or in wooded areas. So in the language from the comprehensive plan.
I think that language is broad enough to drive a Mack truck
Exactly.
through, and we could certainly make some exceptions.
And if you can counter that with the intent that they say for what you're supposed to do within a scenic.
Byway.
So why don't we start with Patrick and then go around? Aaron, I can't see you. It's almost as if
My back hurts from sitting up. I'm too little.
Patrick.
Overall, I was actually impressed with the layout. Honestly, I really thought it was a very nice building area. Doing it as a conservation and keeping all of the housing up into the ridge line, so to speak, I thought was a very smart move. Lot 13, I really don't have a problem with that. I understand the view sheds from Lucas Turnpike and everything, but there are a ton of houses that are far closer. They're right on the road. It's quite the distance from Lucas. I don't have a problem.
Okay. What I like to do as we go around is not get into a debate amongst the board members. Let's just present how we feel about this, and then kind of see if we can create some sort of consensus as opposed to debate. Because we could certainly debate this till midnight, I'm sure, or longer. Mary?
So I disagree with Patrick, but I'm not debating. That I think that you do not see homes that are down at road level. The same way a view shed is a view, by a definition of a view, you're looking out over something. So I am not a fan, as Zach, Mark and I discussed extensively on our walk, of house number 13, because as you're driving along Lucas, you're gonna look up there, and right now you just see fields and you see the woods, and now you'll see a house there. And that's what view is, you're looking out. So you also have the difficulty of, it compounds it, that this is one of the sites where they're gonna have to bring in fill. I mean, a lot of these, my intensity of numbers of houses, although you just said maybe they can have the same number of houses, that is not precluded by the fact that if the land is unable to sustain these number of houses, you cannot give someone in a conservation subdivision or any subdivision that many houses. You have some difficult perking land clay spots here, one of which is number 13, that is going to have to go through, what is it, freeze, thaw, or whatever, a whole cycle of bringing soil in. So I think that's 2 strikes against putting a house there. One, you hit the view shed. 2, and if something goes wrong, once again, to reiterate what I said with the Mount Esta, is if it goes wrong, that goes right down off that hill into the wetlands. And if at some point in the future, that septic that we put in that worked may be good once, it's going to be shallow, it's going to have stuff brought in, it's going to be more likely to fail. That goes right into our protected wetlands. So I think that puts kinds of negatives on that property. And then I would say ditto for the 2 that are down very close to the Rondout Creek, that you have huge, beautiful trees. That should be another
That's house
a
number 2 and 3.
secondary conservation, or more of the conservation area, because, and that should be used for the enjoyment of all the people that are there. And maybe you could put in another second house sort of farther up the hill, where it's sort of those scrappy hemlocks and overgrown field. So the first 2, you come in off a peninsula, you got 1 house up to the left, that's fine. And then you've got the 2 that go down to the Rondout Creek. So even though they're out of the flood zone because it falls off a cliff, I think once again, you put a very dangerous area to put in for perking, because they have.
Well, this was very good soil. First of all, this was better
Yeah,
soil down here than anywhere else.
I don't
And
want to
so,
debate it right now.
but that's
What
the thing,
talking
we're
about-
getting into the health department instead of just focusing
I
on
don't
the view
want
shed.
to debate it.
So-
What we're talking about is preserving areas. that are-
Preserving
But we're
areas that
talking
are-
view shed.
Well,
So
we
that's the
talked
thing.
View shed, and we also talked.
No, we're
about the
talking
rundown.
any concerns.
All the
they have.
conservation stuff.
All
the
of the
conservation
concerns,
areas.
okay.
Yeah, we're not
Yeah.
going to talk about perks right now. That comes later.
So I think that is a area that is very beautiful and should be conserved for what it is along the Rondout Creek. So those are the 3
Okay.
sites that I had difficulty with.
Although Maren and I walked the land at the same time, we have totally different viewpoints on this. I totally disagree. I think down by the Rondout Creek needs an additional home site. Those trees are entirely too big and they're going to encroach on the homes, and they need to come down. And I think that the soil is good where 3 and 4 is. And in the town of Rochester, we have a shared plan where we can have 3 driveways on one driveway, 3 shared driveways on one access. I think that that needs to have an additional home site. I disagree. I agree with Patrick on 13. I think that we have a lot of view shed along Lucas Avenue, and that home site is a beautiful spot for something that's going to look good in this type of a development that's going to bring a lot of tax dollars to our area. But my objection is between 11 and 12. It's exceptionally wet there. The lots are extremely too close. And I foresee future septic issues of just problems running from one to another. So although I am in favor of adding a lot down here, which I think is absolutely the most beautiful site that probably we have in our area, I would like to see 11 move to the Rondout Creek and keep the same number of lots and keep the watershed, I'm sorry, the view shed lot. Although it has objections, it has some soil issues. I think that to have 1 lot there is perfectly acceptable. Now, if there is another place that it would be better suited, that's fine. I'm all for that. But I think that in the case where it's not, and Mara and I disagree, that that lot is perfectly acceptable.
Okay, Surin?
I am not sure about that around Oak Creek, if you really need to get more houses there. It's a good, was good area, and I think it's enough. Lot number 13, the only my concern is in unconventional, however, engineeringly allowed sewage arrangement. In terms of the view, I'm driving there, you're really not gonna see, not gonna disturb your view on gangs, because you really don't see anything there. Maybe driving back from New Paltz, it's more observable, but when you're driving toward New Paltz, you really always see that farm, and after that, you're just passing by and nothing. Other than that, walk the area, look to me kind of reasonable engineering decision with some of the adjustment necessary. You know, if you go into details, but nothing was alarming.
Emery?
Well, I like trees, and I think trees should take precedent over houses all the time, but that's how I feel. But that doesn't have any, you know, whatever. 13 over here is just like, it just doesn't make any sense with the view and, I don't know, the septic, I guess if the health department approves it, it's fine, but it just seems like it's too close to the wetlands, even though I know that it's legally you can do it and stuff like that, but I like trees. That's all I have to say. I just don't like to see them cut down.
Sam?
I think the first thing to say is I actually really love how many different opinions we have. Like, I think that's good, because I think
Great, we'll get
to
absolutely
a
know we're
better-
making a decision.
Right,
But,
opinions are opinions.
So I have yet another different perspective. I guess when I read the stuff about the conservation subdivision, I see a little bit of like an exchange that happens, and I see there being two elements in our comprehensive plan that the town is furthering with the conservation subdivision. One is adding housing stock and doing that with more clustering. And then the second thing is conserving open space and important natural resource areas. And in this, I see kind of like half measures on both of those fronts. And what I'd like to see is like more full embrace of both of those things. So on the conservation side, I think I agree with pretty much everything that everyone said about conservation. Like, these wetland areas that are already included in the proposed conservation area, I think make a lot of sense. I think the area along the Rondout Creek, well, I would certainly love to live in a house there. I think it's very clearly the type of space that we should be trying to conserve if we have the opportunity to. I also think the core forest that skirts the edge of this property is also pretty clearly the type of area that we should be looking to conserve. So when I look at this property, I see that wetland area coming from Lucas, continuing to that core forest, and then coming down to the Rondout Creek as being the areas that should be in the conservation area. Some of it is maybe primary, some of it is secondary, though honestly, I'm a little confused about what that means.
Yeah.
But like, maybe primary is stuff that you can't do anything with anyway.
Yes, it is.
Which to me actually feels secondary, because it's conserved already by its inability to be used. But then on the development side, like, I also feel like there's a little bit of a half measure happening here. The home sites that the proposed home sites that I had the objections to are 1, 3, and 4. So that's the 2 along the Rondout, and then the 1 in the core forest area. And basically the rest of it, I actually thought was great. And I thought that there should actually just be more houses. I share the concerns, obviously the engineering concerns around perks and safe septics. But I thought that this section of the code specifically calls out 2-family homes as a preferred method of development. I thought there were definitely parts, I don't have the numbered map out, but definitely like kind of along the border near where there's that high point with that weird trailer in a mowed field.
Yeah.
I thought that part of the parcel, that higher area where Nadine told us that the perks tests were better in that section. I thought there was maybe an opportunity for like a shared septic that served multiple homes. Like, why does every house need its own septic in a development like this where you've got some of these lots are already proposed to be 1 acre, but they could be smaller. In a conservation subdivision, there's no lot size requirement at all.
So there is, you can't
There
have
is,
more
you
than,
can't-
you can have less than an acre.
You can't have less than an acre.
Does
Sam.
that? Where?
Yeah.
It
And it
says
does,
that.
it
Where does it
doesn't,
say that?
It says that.
it does encourage.
No, I'm just asking because
single-family
I've read it
But
like twice and I just don't
I'd like to
remember.
address some of the concerns
Can I-
that
can
people
I-
The chair
have.
hasn't spoken
Yeah,
yet, so.
can I?
Oh.
I didn't see where it said that about the acre, so I believe everyone, but
It does say.
still,
It's at least an acre.
there are opportunities for more density in the areas that are good for building. And I think the opportunities include things like shared well and septic. And I think they include things like duplex houses. And those are specifically called out in this section of the code. And I think they're worth exploring. Again, I don't know anything about engineering constraints, but this, in terms of the kind of basic trade-off outlined in the conservation subdivision, I'd frankly be happy to see 18 or 20 houses here, but in a smaller area. So that's where, those are my thoughts.
And I just have a few thoughts to add to that. I'm with Sam on 1, 3, and 4, which is kind of almost where Maren was. I'm okay with 13. Like to see it move back further, but 1, 3, and 4, because 1 is certainly in the core area. It's even, well, it's in the core area, core forest area. And 3 and 4, because of the size of the trees there. And the fact that a lot of those trees there, the big white pines, the birch or beech rather, a lot of hemlocks, not real old hemlocks, but a lot of hemlocks, they're actually operating to shield the Rondout Creek and to cool the Rondout Creek in the summertime, which allows, if there are any trout or fish in there, allows for hatchlings to feed on the bug larvae that do a hell of a lot better when the stream is not percolating from the heat. That area actually protects, I believe, some of the creek from, with its the cooling shade of those huge trees. There's no way that any of those trees are going to be preserved if 2 and 3 proceed as proposed here, and I just don't want to see it. It's a prime area for conservation, and 1 because it's in the core forest area. And I'm fine with increasing the density, moving those 3 sites up somewhere, still get the same number, 14. And I'd like to see a little bit of something less than 4-bedroom homes, because I think these are proposed as 4-bedroom homes. See something less than that, that would address a whole variety of people, not necessarily who are living here, because they're still going to be very expensive, but would attract a variety of people that like McMansions, but also don't mind living in a $400,000 home instead of an $800,000 home. So I'd like to see a little bit more, and I'm kind of tongue in cheek. I'd like to see a little bit more diversity. But I'm very strong on not seeing 1, 3, and 4 being developed as proposed.
Okay, so I'm just going to address a couple of the comments, and I'm going to start right away with the shared well and septic. So under individual ownership, the health department does not allow that. So unless it's kind of a.
I'm sorry, that's not you. That's just like, that's so stupid.
Well, that's the case. They
what
do
I-
allow
that
it, you know,
babysitter.
for multifamily homes
So
to
how
have
do
it
you-
shared or apartments, and there has to be like a corporation set up, but
Can a
it is not.
homeowners association- I'm just curious,
No.
like, can it? so you-
No, no, they would have to do like a
Nope, no.
central.
You can do a community though.
Yeah,
like a-
yeah, they could do a community.
Think
water
about if you
community
owned the
sewer.
home next to me and the well died and you don't want to pay, now I don't have any water. Just
Well, no,
opens up
I
yourself
mean,
for
I understand we
problems.
have that though with roads and stuff, like, so in order to have a shared sewage and well,
It would have to be
Have to be a
one
community.
central system,
Which-
and it has,
For-
it's a whole
For
different
all of them.
category, it's a whole public.
Similar to
water
Rock Mountain
supply.
Farms, how we
You
had
have to
today,
have
they
an
had a water, they have a
association that
watershed
runs it.
there.
Mark,
well, that's what I'm
Would you like me to
curious
have the
about, like,
control?
how do
I
you,
understand, all right.
what would be required? I mean, what I hear you saying is, no, that's not possible
So,
here. I guess
What
asking
I'm
is-
saying is for a single family individual home ownership, which
Uh-huh.
is what we're proposing here.
Uh-huh.
We're not proposing
Yeah.
apartments or
understand.
townhouses or something. So for single family home, that is not allowed by the health department. That's a
But
restriction.
there's an unless, I heard you say that unless, and I'm asking
The
what the
only
unless is.
thing would be is if there was one central public water system or a central collective sanitary system,
You'd
which
be
is a
putting in
whole
a
different.
sewage plant,
Right.
you'd
Yeah.
be putting in a water plant.
And then we would definitely
Which
be
is-
discharging into that stream.
Yeah, they would. you would.
Yeah.
So that is not what we're
And I
proposing
think
at
that's
all.
off the table.
And before you go on, I just want to say something about the 1 acre. I don't know quite where you guys are getting that.
Yeah, it's not in the law.
Because it's 32,670
Thank you.
square
I
feet.
knew it was 32,000.
3/4.
Yeah, which is like 3/4 of an acre if you don't have central water and sewer. If she was gonna do what we just talked about with these central
Yeah,
systems,
and that-
they could
half
have,
acre. I mean,
right, 20,000. The 1 acre goes to none of the open space.
Oh, okay.
Can be less than 1 acre.
Okay.
Oh, that's where the
Right.
1 acre.
So,
is.
so
Okay.
Yeah.
so I just wanted to get that whole sharing your wells and septic cannot be done for single family residential. As far as the 4-bedroom, what we did when we were looking at this, in order to get some sizing requirements, we figured that is the largest home that this could support if it was a 4-bed. But that doesn't mean every house would be a 4-bedroom house. And I do know that, and this I think will come a little later on, that the owner is working with an architect that will be designing different size homes and options for these lots, very specific for these lots. But not every house is going to be a 4-bedroom house. That's not how it's going to be done. I'd like to comment on the core forest area being basically an overlay from some state mapping, that the placement of it is very arbitrary. And even being out there and the area that it covers, the majority of that is already cleared. It's a long clearing wood. There's not even any trees there. And the trees in that particular area are really not different than the area all surrounding it. So just my 2 cents on the core forest. I do know that we had conversations and we are very dedicated to locating the trees on this site according to the comprehensive plan, and anything over 15 inches in these proposed disturbed areas, and maintaining the larger trees as much as possible. And I know we talked about very specifically for where we show 3 and 4, because of the very large trees down there and the better soil, that it's much easier to locate those things where we're not doing a lot of disturbance for those trees. And very specific to those lots and the town zoning. The town zoning already incorporates a buffer from any creek of 100 feet that you cannot clear, build within that buffer. So once you get beyond that, the trees in those areas, although we will save any large trees that we possibly can, they are not providing the shade or the structure to the stream banks, the better banks of the stream. So that area is already 100% protected by the zoning. And I know we also talked about layering in very specific no build areas. And I hear you talk about that with other people related to protecting areas. So again, there's a difference between a conservation, because here's the thing with the conservation that was the overall concept for this, is that it would be available and accessible to the homeowners in this property, that it would be accessible to them for passive recreation, that they would be allowed to use it for hiking, fishing, whatever is allowed in those areas. And then that some of the homes would maintain some areas under their own ownership for some privacy, because everything else would be open and shared by everyone. And then protect.
But then that has to be delineated, as Sam said, because
Definitely.
right now those houses aren't. Those are just the houses that are there. There's not, that needs to be conservation area secondary. Conservation area primary is exactly what Sam said. It's really things you can't do anything with. It's a body of water, 100-year floodplain, federal state wetlands, and slopes over 25 grade. So we can't build on a 25 grade. So
That's the primary.
the primary area, you can't do anything with anyway. So you have that there. That were 3 and 4 are that he was mentioning are very much a secondary conservation area that maybe shouldn't have houses there. Viewpoints, stone walls, groves of large trees, rock ledges, and other areas of value to a subdivision or as conservation features as shall be determined by the planning board. So if we shall said you cannot build there, then we shall say you can't build there.
With the understanding that, and we can stick with lots 3 and 4 just because we're on it, other than, what is the concern and where is that and what is the view shed there and is there mitigation? Because then we have to also talk about mitigation and
Just move the houses someplace else.
Yeah, move the houses someplace else.
This is an area, look, this area out here, out by Lucas Avenue, it's all wetlands. It's wet, damp, soggy for a good part of the year. It's gonna be difficult to put trails through there that anybody can walk on except when the ground is frozen. So.
right, no, and
the
we talked about that
possibility-
because we're not
hang
even
on,
showing that,
hang on,
and we
hang
have
on,
a
hang
very
on.
specific
Let me finish.
trail
It's
route.
not, well, I'd love to see what the trail route is.
Yeah, it's
But from
on,
what I can see here, these are lands that you couldn't build on if you had gone with a regular major subdivision. Wait, I'm
And-
not finished.
wait, but in the regulations, it says that you
No.
can use that for a certain percentage of the conservation
This
area.
area down here is a beautiful view shed that should be shared by the whole,
You should, from where?
Well, so let's, can we
from
go,
standing on the shoreline. It should be available to
But the view
everybody
shed
in
is
these
what's
homes.
looking into the property. It's not
Well,
what's
right.
looking out.
well, you could
That's
be
not
on the
the
river.
definition.
Looking out on, well,
I
that's
think in
true.
L2, I think it's worth, maybe we have this map that has no houses or roads identified. It sounds like we may, as a board, be able to reach consensus about what we feel should be primary and secondary conservation areas. I mean, this law does helpfully outline a process, and perhaps we should do that process. We've got everything from L1, basically, like the chair said earlier. We should start doing L2, and L2A is designating, like, looking at this map and designating what areas we as a board feel should be the primary and secondary conservation areas.
Well, primary, pretty obvious. It's.
Can we use
floodplains,
one of the maps and
wetlands.
draw on it? I know this maybe feels like elementary school, but I think it might be
Sure.
good. I'll put it up on the board. How about that?
Yeah.
Can I take this map?
Yeah, no, that's yours. That is the board's.
I've got to pick up.
Can I be the person at the board? Is that okay, everyone?
Right through when you do it.
All right, hopefully we don't stab too many holes. All right, so is everyone oriented? So I think everyone can agree, everything that's highlighted in bright blue and the buffers around the wetlands, that's conservation area.
That's primary. You can't
Great,
build
so
it
I'm not
anywhere.
gonna draw any of that. There's a lot of discussion about this section down here, kind of below this rise and the creek. Other areas that I heard discussion of were sort of this area in here as being view shed from Lucas.
Now, has everybody driven down Lucas and
Yeah.
looked up at the property?
And then
Okay,
Mark
'cause
mentioned kind of.
You can't
this
see most of
area
it.
In here because of it being wet, right?
Yeah.
Is that it? Were there any other areas that I didn't say that people have opinions about?
Yeah.
We're talking about the river. You didn't point out.
Well, I did say this. I said this area down between the steep drop and the river. So this
The
this
entire
whole
area.
area.
So I have a question. So if you're on the river, will you see these homes?
You may not, and
Well, 3 and
because
4.
we have a
years.
steep
I mean,
slope.
isn't
It's
that
a
part
very
of the
steep
view?
slope and they're set
think so.
back.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to-
Well,
you would not see
With the
it.
trees and the.
It's way too steep.
But I do have a question. One
You
thing
might
I,
see,
No, it's, I mean, it's an
Maybe a
honest
roof
question.
line,
If
maybe
you're
a
Definitely.
canoeing or kayaking
Maybe
down the
this
river, are
roof
you
should
gonna
be
see these
30
homes
feet
or
up.
not?
They're gonna be gabled.
yeah. It's pretty, you're down pretty far in the water.
What is that slope? Do we know how deep it
I
is?
It's
don't
like
know.
at least 20.
25%.
And then these are these two?
I can tell you, yeah,
Yeah.
So it's like. It's like almost 30 feet up before it flattens out from what's shown here is the level of the river.
It's probably like shaly rock and some sort.
Plus another 100-foot buffer.
No.
well, it's 100 foot from the edge of the dark blue.
And the floodplain,
So it-
That is unusable anyway.
Yeah.
100 foot goes beyond the top of that slope a bit, but not
A
much. It's
little.
kind of at the top.
Which
and the
makes sense.
floodplain
Mhm.
doesn't go to the top of the slope because
It's
there's
just
not
too
a
steep.
wide floodplain there.
Yeah.
Because
And then
it's
there's
the
like,
slope.
I think clearly like in a extremely rare flood, this would be floodplain too, but it's not considered floodplain by FEMA.
You would need, the river would have to go up.
Yeah, it's,
It would have to be,
it-
it would have to go up another 10 feet above the highest
Irene.
it's been. No, Irene was like 36.
Irene was
It would probably have to
crazy.
be like 40 plus at Rosendale.
Yeah.
Which, you know, that's why it's flat there, like it's happened historically. But not recently.
That's why there's good soil there.
there's very good soil there.
All right, so
It's one of those
are there
things.
any other, so it sounds like everyone's in agreement about this, and there's disagreement in the board about this area. And did anyone other than Mr. Grasso have concern about over here?
If you walk through it, it was
I mean,
exceptionally
It was
wet.
wet,
Maren
yeah.
and I
Oh,
were getting stuck.
Yeah, I
with it.
remember, yeah,
It
it
was
was wet,
amazingly
but-
wet,
but
considering how
it's-
dry it had been.
There is a way for the board to be able to observe the house at that location, which would be
View
the
shed.
possibility of staking.
Corner.
If there's a way of not staking corners, but maybe floating some kind of a balloon or something at the height of the house for a couple corners to see if they could see it.
Oh, so we're
from
back to the
Lucas.
view shed.
You're
He's
talking
worried
about-
about the,
Yeah,
it being
wet,
wet
wet.
because
Yeah,
it was
different
very
area, different
rainy
area.
and there's a steep
Well, it
slope
sounds like-
there.
all
and
right,
we
well, it
talked
sounds
about
like there's
13
three
putting in
areas.
drainage.
Yeah.
Let's call this.
Okay.
one.
13's not wet at all. That's
No,
not
no,
even
that's
dry.
that's the view.
Right, so I'm,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm confused of.
Sorry.
Me too.
So hold
jumping
on,
all
so
over.
there's area 1. There's area 2, which is like warehouse, I think 13 was. And then there's area 3, which is like in the woods. And there's 2 home sites proposed here and here.
And I'd
So-
just like to remind you, just because a home site is visible from a public space doesn't mean it can be discounted.
Right.
course not.
we're-
Of
You
course
we're
know,
not.
trying-
But it would
so
help to
I
know.
just want to
The question
keep
that
that on
we're
the
trying
top
to
of
talk
everyone's
about
mind.
is conservation areas based on our walking, not thinking about home sites. That's
Sam,
what
I just
I'm
want to
saying.
clarify number 3
Yeah,
on my comment.
yeah.
It's not that I disagree with that home site, it's just that I disagree with how reduced the size of the home sites are.
I
There's
see.
3 sites that are encompassing
Yeah,
Maren, was it
there's like-
4 acres? I think that it should be 2 sites there. rather than 3 in a 4-acre territory.
So you don't feel like this 3 needs to be a conservation area
No.
so much, it's
No.
just a home site layout?
It's more,
Just how many homes are in that
Right.
reduced
Okay.
area.
Does anyone else think that 3
That was our.
should be?
exactly, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It's not that we don't like the site, it's that we just don't like that many homes. There's too much density.
So does anyone think that 3 should be part of like a primary or secondary, whatever that means,
No.
conservation? Okay, so we're just talking about, so now let's talk about 2.
Mhm.
It sounds like the concern about 2, Lauren outlined 2 concerns. One is a view shed concern. And the second is like a soils
Septic,
kind of
yeah.
septic suitability.
Mhm.
It seems like to me, the first concern is related to conservation and the second concern is related
And
to
here's,
house.
well, I realize this is a bit too much of a theoretical discussion. I know the Department of Health will always give something. They look, they see the source good.
You could pay as much as you want.
You can pay as much as you want. They're gonna say yes to everything. I mean, I haven't seen them refuse much anything. The point is down the line, you have something that is on a hill going down into these DEC and Army Corps of Engineer wetlands, that if you start to have septic problems, because the septic is fine when they do it now, but 10 years from now, septics aren't fine. And you're at a high risk, so it is an environmental concern that I have, not immediate. I do realize, I'm not allowed to think this or say this, that the Department of Health has the end say, but it's somewhere down the line. That was Mark and I's concern also with the density where it was very wet. If this ends up like Mexico City, you always
It
want to
all
have the
rolls
house
in,
on the
right.
on the hill,
Right.
because it all flows down to the
So is
slums
that,
down low.
so if 2 were wooded and didn't have the view, would you be thinking of it the same as you're thinking about 3?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
I'd
So
like to
does that mean
add,
it's like that the conservation part of it is related to the view, and then the septic part of it is a home site density concern, separate from
I
conservation?
guess if they backed it up, we would be okay.
Right, exactly.
Brought it closer towards.
Sam, do you see
Core.
house numbers are?
Behind,
that
behind
makes
the
sense.
uh,
It's
tree
more if
stand.
If they backed
you
it off a
pull-
little bit.
If you pull it back, because once
Yeah.
again, if you get less of a risk
But now you're
Of
gonna,
the-
you're
of
gonna
the-
have more disturbance.
of the
So
septic
view
going
shed-
down.
So the view shed concern sort of ends at the tree line,
Yeah.
basically.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And if
If
there
the
is,
house was in the tree
if there
line,
is more disturbance, it's trade-off between view shed versus
I'm
disturbance.
okay with that,
And
yeah.
I'm
over
okay with that.
1,000 feet.
So you guys are saying basically it's like a view shed question from if you're heading, I guess, south on
I think it's more of a
Lucas, you're
second
seeing it there, and if you're heading north.
At
You really don't
55
see it.
miles an
Yeah,
hour.
you really don't see.
Sam, I think the concern that Martin and I had is it's not necessarily that the home site and viewing the house there, it's that the septic is the problem.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of septics in a little bit of area there.
So does that,
That is an environmental concern. when
That's
it
our
goes into the
environmental.
water.
I don't think we care where the home is, but if you back the home into the tree line, the septic won't be as liable,
As-
Lauren.
As probable or
Right.
potentially
I
it
mean, I may
flows
be,
into the
like
wetlands.
naively trying to like this 4 things in L2? It's like the first one is conservation area, and then like the third one is home sites.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm trying to like
I see what you're saying.
separate the
Prioritize.
two.
Let's find where
Like,
the
are you
conservation areas
saying-
are. So we can
So I'm
find
saying
them.
that yes, there's a conservation issue and having something that could be
Right.
moved into the wetlands. Is
Okay.
that clear enough?
Yeah.
I agree.
No,
I
that is.
agree.
There's an environmental issue there.
How
yes.
does everyone else feel?
I like the idea of moving that one back. It actually solves 2 problems, potentially the sewer problem or septic problem, but it also cuts down on a little bit of the lack of view shed from 65 miles an hour.
But when we.
But we had more
And
disturbance.
I can,
Give up the
I'll trade
disturbance.
off for the disturbance.
When we're moving back, is that still gonna be elevated field?
Well, let's
or not?
wait on that specific home site. It
Listen,
sounds
you
like,
that's
you
what
look
I'm
like
Let's
you
make
have
the
something
boundary.
to say.
it sounds like we're
What?
saying,
There would be.
You look like
So
you have
what
something that
we-
you'd like to
I
say.
do, but I'm waiting for the
So
right.
what
moment.
you're solving?
Thank you.
Still the same type of design for septic system.
no, we're not talking about septics. We're talking about what
The
the
boundary of
conservation
the-
area should be. And I think what's been agreed on now is kind of this 100-foot buffer from the wetland. And then kind of following this tree line / wetland
Right.
with a little bit of a hazy line here that maybe sticks out, maybe doesn't quite go to the tree line, but also like doesn't exclude fields totally. And then,
encroaching on the field. but
so
not-
there's like a line, there's like a conservation boundary line, you've got the line already from the 100-foot setback. And you've got the 100-foot setback here, and it sounds like you guys are kind of saying.
Like right through the number
You
2.
don't want to go, yeah, you kind of want to like have the boundary be something like that.
Exactly.
Okay,
I'm good
and
with
then this boundary is basically
What it shows,
follow the wetland.
Right.
which is how it shows.
So
it
that's a
already.
conservation boundary. Then over here, we're following the wetland,
Right.
and I don't know.
But
what they-
isn't the current conservation boundary goes right to the road, Nadine?
Well, he's doing it from what you want to
Right,
conserve,
without, you don't see it. You don't
not
see
the
it. We're
extra
not
that
looking at
we're
houses.
including,
Right.
or, you know,
And then we'll figure out where the road goes.
And then here, I mean,
what
I
we're allowed
guess,
to do in the conservation area.
to me, it seems worth just following that 100-foot setback because SAB is just good soil.
Yeah, agreed.
Just follow the,
So that's like this. And then Nadine made a case that we should kind of ignore the core forest. I found it somewhat persuasive, but
It's
I
not
don't, I'm
much of
only
a
one
forest.
person.
well,
Yeah, I look at it, it was a big tree were already cut there.
The
So
people that live in the
there was
lots.
nothing.
Yeah, but it's a core forest, but there's not many trees left.
Right,
and most of them are.
yeah.
Dead or nasty
I mean, part of
scraggling.
why it felt important to me is I was also, in my head, this is also part of the conservation area, and then it just felt like an obvious place for
Well,
connectivity.
I don't, you know,
But maybe
my
that's not-
problem is like, I don't really, the spot where 2 and 3 are, 3 and 4, sorry,
Is that these two
those two.
by the river?
I don't have any objection to putting a house there as long as they leave the trees. The big
But
trees.
Patrick, the moment you put the house up, they say they leave the trees, and then somebody goes and cuts them, and it's your own house. You
Yeah.
have no guarantee unless
Patrick,
you're
the
in
tree, the
conservation.
trees have to go because they're too big and they're gonna encroach on the house.
They're gonna
But
fall.
they all need to go because they're overgrown. They're too big, in my opinion.
Talk, Liz, talk, please. You're dying.
Something will take their place when they fall.
Yeah, right.
Nothing will take their place if the houses are there. And you know what, when they start clearing those houses, footprint for the houses and the lines out to the septic and getting in there to do the,
Your kids.
they're all
the
gonna,
roots.
they're all gonna go anyway.
They all should go, in my opinion.
Well, I don't think they
Yeah.
should.
All of them gone.
No.
They're too big. They're
You would
overgrown.
agree, I guess you would agree that all of
Back
that
to
should
the
be
city.
burned.
Well, no, but that
All right,
treehouse
all right.
tree, the
Seriously,
spruce
this is
is
the country.
huge.
I'm okay with the core wood, I'm okay with the core woodlands not being included because it is, it's crap, it's a lot of, there are a lot of.
So my
crappy
only
trees
thing
in
is
there.
what Sam said, so if you draw a
I like.
conservation, we seem to have some union, some
Connectivity.
majority that says that this should be this is now secondary. Probably, but the secondary conservation in some way, shape, or form there.
Wait,
Oh, we got
let
it.
Liz talk before
No,
you
Liz,
start
start
talking.
talking.
She's gonna burn.
She's
No,
been trying.
Start talking,
So
go.
I'm just wondering if there's a way for that waterfront to somehow be split between a home site and something where people can go and get next to the water.
It is.
It is.
It
We do propose
is.
to
Well,
have,
a little bit
a-
here.
well, it's like 4 acres.
Yeah.
It's not a little
I
bit,
was
it's a
gonna say,
lot.
yeah, that was my question.
And,
How,
and there is a,
what's
you know, we
that frontage
show,
there?
what's
It's
that?
where the
What's that
flood-
frontage there?
It's also
on
where
that?
the floodplain comes up along the old drainage ditch from
Right.
agriculture.
No, it goes way over into where this is and it's level, and then you can walk right down here like you walked down to
Yeah.
the creek. It goes into that area where you can physically walk down to the creek. And it's like 4 acres of land, which again, here's the thing, and we can look at these areas for no build. We're definitely gonna look at the trees to preserve, but we also have to look at some privacy for the homeowners. And I know we talked about that even when we were walking these houses, I know back to the house sites, because of the hill. Like if we placed one on the one side, then this over here, you're not looking right into each other's windows. And that's why we placed one a little down the other way. But so down there, I mean, we are proposing that, yes, the homeowners are gonna have access to the creek. They're, talking about, providing a trail, possibly a dock which I don't know the floodplain regulations for building a new sort of dock, so we're not even getting into that. But so that, the home sites can have some privacy, obviously limiting disturbance, limiting tree cutting, limiting building
But once
areas.
again, once the house is there and it's your private property, I can cut every single tree.
So
down.
that's why also that I'd like to keep the conservation areas that we show on their own as the homeowners, so they all have it, and, just keep what, people can build on limited. And that's why we have like a little bit of a conservation, because
Can't you
we
try
can
swinging those
conserve
up here?
we can conserve this area and put that septic there. So, you
No,
gotta
I
be
agree with
careful
that.
what you're saying. So, but now we got an area, this whole, and I know we're not looking at the lot lines, but this whole area that somebody is utilizing, and, they still have the right to do things in, instead of keeping it like, have the conservation area go around there where this is everybody's business and everybody's, policing it. But I mean, kind of.
I think we have a plan if we just eliminate 3 and 4.
Yeah, just.
Well,
Oh, I
it-
disagree. I like
Redraw.
three and four.
it's, I don't think that's the
Sorry,
thing.
I don't
It's
agree.
not a full consensus on that.
And it's good
We can-
soil.
We can bring it to a vote.
And that's
We
the
can bring
thing,
it to a
everybody,
vote.
What's what?
yeah, you can poll the
What's that,
board,
all
but I
piece?
think
Is there
that you
anybody else
really have to
I have
consider.
one comment on the 13 comment, because we brought that back some. So now, in the event that 3 and 4 were to get voted down,
Mhm.
would we agree that potentially another home site could go next to 13?
I'm not sure where those two, I'm not looking to.
Because I'm a little
eliminate-
concerned as,
I'm not looking to eliminate home sites.
oh, no, I agree. I'm
And you
just-
have to have a legitimate reason to eliminate.
Right.
the
I
home
was gonna
site.
say, make,
We're not
No,
eliminating
the
home sites. We're
process,
saying
there's
take
no
those
home
two and
sites
put them
there.
someplace else.
Well, that's
We're not
That's what you
eliminating
said.
home
suitable,
sites.
that's a
You have to-
suitable building site
Right.
The
according to.
legitimate reason is that it
zoning.
is I believe it's a conservation area. It's a secondary. If you look at the definition of secondary conservation area, let me get there. It says those areas, secondary conservation areas shall also be delineated and prioritized for
Right.
preservation.
Right.
Period. That's
We
what it
can't
says.
Based on what? But based on
We
what?
just want to, it doesn't say based on anything. It says
Right,
for
but-
preservation.
but-
It's on the river. It has
It's not on the
trees that
river.
are,
It's
it's
not.
close enough to the river. It's close enough to the river that it needs to be preserved. Those trees are huge. There's a couple of huge beeches in there, couple of huge
We-
white
We
pines.
can
They're
conserve
gonna
those
go.
trees.
You're not gonna preserve.
I mean, well, the flip
You're gonna
side is-
disturb the roots. They're
Yeah,
gone.
they're
You're
gonna
toast.
die.
No, they're gone. They're done. Once you start
They're
building,
toast.
you're
The
gonna.
roots
go
go
so
huge
far out that
area
they're gonna
down there
die.
to
They're
conserve
The
trees.
flip side is though, like, if, like, the whole, it's conservation subdivision, right? You're supposed to be conserving something. It's obvious when you've got like a 500-acre property that borders the Catskill Park and then
Right.
fronts on Sampsonville Road, that, okay, you cluster your 50 houses by Sampsonville and you leave the entire back untouched. This is a very different parcel because you have, as has been said, ad infinitum, you've got this whole section is unusable for development. You've got steep slopes here. You want to have a bunch of houses. So, okay, conservation, but most of what's being conserved isn't
Can't use
being
anyway.
Can't use
conserved.
anyway.
It's already
It's
conserved.
already conserved. You're
So,
not
Which is the
doing
point.
anything.
But
And-
you can't really
Can I
say
just
that.
finish, like, what's happening when you do this, and I know we're not supposed to think about financial stuff, but like, this is a huge tax write-off. And there's no benefit that I see to the town to give that benefit.
Exactly.
And we're the planning board, we're supposed to say,
No.
we can say no. And
Yeah.
you can still build 14 lots without a conservation subdivision, have the same home sites, but the lots are bigger, so they pay more taxes. Like,
So we
That's
could not
straightforward.
do the conservation subdivision is what you're saying. We should
I
go
mean, I'm
back
saying
to.
that's
a
another
con-
option, because if.
We could, and then we could put the houses down by the river.
Right, but like,
That's a-
that's the thing, right?
but-
If you're not gonna conserve the areas that the planning board or some members of the planning board are saying
But
like.
for
these
what,
are important
but the
areas.
reason, you gotta have a reason,
There-
it
no,
can't be
we don't.
arbitrary.
No, that's not.
Yeah,
true.
you do.
No, that is
No.
true, because if
It
you
is
go to
true.
court, you
I-
can't
I
do it on an
disagree.
arbitrary and
I
capricious
disagree.
basis.
No, the law says.
We're not, we're
We're
not.
not being arbitrary
We're
and
telling them-
capricious and
wait,
says
wait a
we
second,
can
Mary.
do
No,
conservation.
you
stuff.
wait a
He's
second.
talking about the law.
No, wait a
No,
second.
Okay.
We're not-
It's not.
we're not
They're
in
following a
court.
process.
We're
that's
not in
the
court.
law.
We're
Right,
simply saying you can't build there.
and if you get to court.
Well, how would we possibly get to court?
Reasonableness.
We're being reasonable.
If
We're
she-
saying,
if they
take
sue
these,
us.
take these two houses, put them someplace else,
Right.
because the conservation
Because the
subdivision
conservation subdivision
gives
says
us
follow
greater
this
That's right.
ability
Thank
to
you.
conserve.
It does give you greater ability to
We're
conserve,
conserving
and
because
read
it's by the
into
river.
everything
It's
in
by the
this
river.
law
I don't
is
agree
when
with
you
you.
do
I'm
it.
sorry.
You don't have to agree.
I
I have
don't
to
agree.
give you legal
No, that's fine.
advice.
I appreciate
And I
that.
tell you all the time, take it or leave it,
Right,
but I'm going on the record.
right. So
That
we do
any
have,
decision that you make.
Right.
When
Is
a court
subject
looks
to-
at it, they will say, okay, they said this should be conserved. What was the reasonable reason they said it should be conserved? So make sure you outline that. That's
So
all I'm saying.
conservation area is
Don't just
secondary.
say
I
because we
think-
feel
Well,
like
I
it.
think,
Rick, we
I
can
think
read
the
the definition.
reality is that that
We can
it
read
I was gonna
sounds
say, do
like
we
the
have a
board
definition for
is of
secondary
the
for you to
feeling
follow?
that this is a secondary conservation area.
Right, and there's a
I'm sure the
definition of
applicant is
it.
gonna
Right, let's do the
proceed.
definition. Hold on.
Right.
The
Then it's gonna agree.
definition, Rick, is conservation areas, parentheses, secondary, viewpoints, stone walls, groves of large trees, rock ledges, and other areas of value to a subdivision or as a conservation feature, as shall be determined by the planning board and subdivider. So there is
make
supposed
sure
to
you
be
fit
some
within
amount
that.
of consensus.
So I knew that, I
Is
just
that
didn't
right?
want to share.
This one is up.
It's in the
It is in
glossary
the
of the-
definition.
So,
I
yeah,
couldn't find. It's in
it's
the
in the
definition.
definitions. The definitions are always the key thing to go back to.
And
So,
make sure it fits within that definition if you're going to.
so this is of value to the people in this conservation subdivision, because this is your access, the whole thing of it, not just the 4 acres, not just the one little piece. So why don't you try seeing where else the houses could go on the other part of it?
So that again?
I said, why don't they try redrawing it and seeing where the houses could go otherwise, and that
No,
whole
they
part of the
already-
bottom.
Nadine already showed us that. And yeah, it works, but I don't really think that's what they want to do.
Well, this isn't just what you want to do. That's not our job, it's what they want to do.
Why don't we just get the sense of the board?
Well, Soren has a question. Soren.
Zorian?
I don't have a question, I have a
Sam,
suggestion.
where-
I have,
Where did you
I
find
don't
that?
have a question, I have a suggestion.
Go ahead.
Maybe we should walk again.
Not really.
Those particular areas.
Yeah,
We could do that.
Okay.
exactly.
I think it would be much clearer because it was a huge area, we all walk through. And now we have a general idea what, now we have to go to those specific areas and walk through again.
Thank you.
And then we will be
Okay.
stronger in our decision.
I pretty much got it. You can walk it again. I like Patrick's idea, put house between 2 and 8.
So there's a lot of other things to consider on this property and for engineering.
I don't want to leave.
And
the issue.
drainage is one of them. And
Let's-
that's, you know, when we are looking at this, we're not just thinking about just the
Nadine,
trees or just the
Hang
stuff,
on, I'm
but
gonna cut you off. I want to vote of the board on lots 3 and 4, and we'll walk it. We can change our mind, but I'd like to get a sense of the board right now on lots 3 and 4. For those who.
What are we voting on? Keeping them or not?
The
Moving them
phrase it
elsewhere.
as, should the conservate, are we saying that that section should be a secondary conservation?
Conservation
area?
area.
Okay.
That's the way
Because,
to do it. Yeah.
because it's adjacent to the river, has a large grove of trees.
Right.
And we view it as scenic because it's adjacent to the river and its inherent natural beauty.
What Sam said.
There you
Can I
go.
ask
That
before, can I ask the
think
applicant
is
what their
important.
plan is to do with it in the event there was not a house at 3 and 4?
No, we're gonna vote on.
Well, it'd be
what
part of
Sam
the
proposed.
conservation.
And
So
and
they have
it
a-
is potentially beneficial for the residents of the community.
Yes.
It could be shared by the community.
In the future.
So Sam, and we're gonna need to write that down at some point in time.
He always
It's
does.
important.
He does these
well,
great-
yeah, you're gonna have to, because you'll have to submit that to the applicant.
All those in favor of what Sam just said signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against?
Aye.
Okay, so it's 6-1.
All right, so now we have a line for the conservation. I lost that marker. Where'd it go? So now the line goes, it basically includes this steep slope. And it goes, like, I guess it kind of just goes like this, and it's not necessarily connected to up here, because Nadine was persuasive, I think, on the core photos. So now, step 2, or B, is identify potential home sites. So Nadine's identified some, which I'm gonna just roughly do. Apologies for not.
Want a
getting it
different
quite
pen?
right.
You mean
Sure.
instead of, or?
No, this is supposed to be a collaborative process
Jesus, Mary
between the
Jo.
planning
Here's
board
the
and the
green one.
subdivider. I'm following the
There you
steps
go. Here's the green one. Sorry.
in L2 letter B area.
Okay, so why don't you take this map and just put this?
Because that map already has home sites on it.
So
He's
it's
doing this
supposed
without
to-
the home site,
L
so it's
one.
not confusing. The first thing you do is pick your conservation
L1
area.
says pick the conservation area, or L1 says provide this map and go on a walk. We've done that.
Right.
Then L2 says A, define your conservation area. We've done that. L2B says identify potential home sites. So that's what we should do. So I'm just gonna put the ones that Nadine suggested that are not in the conservation area
Okay.
roughly. So there's one here-ish. There's 2 here.
Mhm.
There's another one. Tell me if I'm getting this right. Nadine.
you want
It's
the
like kind of
map?
About here.
Well, no, so put it where number 2 is.
Closer.
Well,
Yeah,
there's
right.
this one.
They're a lot closer, they're a lot
Yeah, there's
closer than
one.
you're putting it.
It's right inside.
It's just on the other
There's
side.
one
No, on the other side.
here, There's one here, right? Then you've got one that's here. Got one. Here. One. Here. One here. One here. And one. One
On the
here,
other side,
and then one. Here.
How many you got so far?
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which is correct, because there were
Taking out 3 and
2 that were not in. So the ones that there's been concern over are just these 3.
I like Patrick's ideology of getting one between 2 and 8.
Yeah.
Which I don't know which ones those are.
No, you can't. There's too many existing drainage channels in that area. You can't.
Okay, the applicant's saying it's not an option because
It's not
there's
an
drainage
option.
issues there.
That's a major
And
drainage
this bushy
area for the
clearing,
site.
So there's like
Oh, yeah, I
Testal
see it.
9.
You have it on here. It says drainage channel on here.
No,
That was the stream.
there's right where Testal
The
9
semi-school?
is, there's the bushy clearing
Coming down.
between like Testal 9 and
I don't think
Testal
we
15.
got there.
Hmm.
It says then there's a wet area mark here. It said this is bushy clearing. Oh, drainage channel.
That's a deep ditch.
This spot in the middle of brushy clearing isn't feasible.
We did have a house site there and we moved it.
Because
Because, I mean, we could get it up there, but then we get into very funky lot lines to adjust the
Okay.
septic. So
I
we
gotcha.
spread them out and put them in areas that septics made
Okay.
much more sense.
So it could,
What about the road comes right down here?
well, but the road comes last. There's no road.
No, I
down.
know, but right in this area.
This area. What about this area? Maybe.
North of the that.
If
that
you don't
huge
have a
ravine.
driveway here.
No, none of that you
this
can
way.
use because that's where, so if you start from the wet area
Well,
and
you
you
can- you can
follow
come up
that, it's, that's gonna be a major drainage.
I mean, there's a wet blanket proverbially and literally over all of this, that there's a lot of houses we're trying to put in a place that has a lot of drainage problems. There's a lot of Mexico
It's
City.
not a problem if you utilize the existing paths, which this is, and that's why we're using that and we're not putting a house there.
So what about here?
No, we used to jump
Because it's
off
just
right
too
now.
close to this and this. And what about here?
Yeah, we had a house site
So
there,
that's potential.
but we moved it
That's feasible.
because septic was much better down in this area.
So when I was walking the property, I thought that this whole area here could have more houses. Why?
Again, because of the slopes and the size of the septic systems, that we have to do not just the septic system, but 100%
So we
reserve
feel-
area that you have to
We just
reserve.
can't do it
So-
and lay stuff out.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
he's
there's just
shitting
not
on that
enough
house
room
right
with
now.
slopes, and they have to be parallel with the slopes. So this hillside kind of goes off in this direction. So things start like kind of turning around.
Maybe I'm 40 pounds of British Spaniel.
Well, that's what Mark was
That's
concerned
where
about.
we're
more.
clustering, that's where we're clustering.
That's where you
These
already have septic
houses-
problems. Potential
We
septic.
don't have septic.
Pot-
problems.
Potential septic
You gotta
problems.
stop saying that.
Well, it's really wet there, so when your shoe's coming off your foot.
I have a septic system.
Looking outside of these areas, what about like over here? I know you've got a road there currently.
Yeah, no, this was, because this too, like this is that knoll,
Mhm.
and then once you get down knoll, we got this drainage that we're dealing with, so we're not doing that.
So we added maybe one.
house.
Would we be able to put one in this area?
If you're not, driveway, if you're driving, if you're not having, you're not putting these driveways. If these two houses are.
Then one can go there.
You actually have more room here.
So
Put
something in
something in
here,
there.
here. And that adjusts our line a little bit. So then we go.
Yeah, because I can still put septic here.
This brushy clearing area. Is that one of the ones you guys want to do?
So that gives you still.
So that is an area that we want to preserve for drainage.
Right.
That does not mean we can't fill it in. We're just trying to avoid doing that because we want to utilize existing drainage channel, but we can
Makes
fill
good
it.
sense.
You can't put a septic over here.
No.
But if so, but this is the same number that we now have on this map, right? It's 14 now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. If this line just scoots around this house, so there's 1 instead of 3 or 2, Mark wanted 3.
5, whatever you get down.
I would
God's
go
a
for
thing,
5
if they could be, if it could be.
Are you sure you're
multifamily.
not the
You
person?
would, you would agree with that?
You sure
Multifamily?
you're not the guy that was burning down all the redwoods out of town?
No, that wasn't me.
Well, so is this, I mean, I feel like we've gone through
Good
A
stuff.
and B.
Sam,
I like it.
but it implies that it needs to be done by applicants.
It went.
Well,
It
they have
implies
to,
it needs to be done by applicants. It doesn't say anything.
What needs to be done by applicants?
Step A, B, C, and D.
No, it's a joint effort.
I know, but it doesn't say.
It's a joint effort.
Applicants who arrange for site inspection and based on the map inspection, 4-step design for shall be then be applied to determine.
By
level
the
of
planning
Yeah,
compensation.
we did it.
Right.
We did it.
that's what I'm saying is going a little bit too far. Like, I really need to preserve that area.
Now, may I request?
The conservation subdivision law, if you would, allows us to participate Yeah, yeah.
Much more in
the layout of this, and that's what we just did.
I want to clean up poop.
All right. So I
Well,
think
because
we
we
got a
do,
plan.
so with this and relocating these house sites, is this, one, we need the, and I'll have to go back to the applicant because he might not want to do the conservation subdivision based on
Go
this.
back to us.
But the board would accept a conservation subdivision based on that sketch.
It sounds like it.
I think so.
And so that has to be, that
Yeah.
decision has to be made by the board.
I think we've gone through, and maybe we could do a vote on this too. I think we've gone through 2A and B. So this is tentative house sites shall be identified. So obviously that's pending like feasibility of engineering, but
Which every sketch is subject
Sure,
to,
yeah.
and is subject to archaeological, it's subject to a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
of things. But we need that actual decision by the board to accept the conservation and the sketch so that we can move on to these other things.
What I'm hearing, except for the tree burner, but even the
I'm
tree
not one to
burner,
burn them, just.
that the board's on board with the whole idea of the conservation subdivision with those minor modifications.
Yeah, I think we need a vote on it though.
Yeah, I
Like,
think
I think there needs to be a motion, it needs to be an
Yeah,
official.
under 2B, we should.
Right.
so pursuant to provision 12523 L2B, I move that the board adopt the
Revised.
the
Tentative house sites as
tentative house
laid
sites
off.
and tentative conservation area boundaries as illustrated on the map that is currently on the wall and that a few pictures have been taken and that Nadine should take home.
And
So that's
and
a
that's
motion.
pursuant to A and B, because.
Yeah, A and B.
A and B.
Discussion? Patrick, second.
Discussion, just clarification, the home site that you put in the newly revised line, that is a half moon, yes. Is that the line? It's not the straight across, it's the half moon?
Yeah, something like
Something
that.
like that would be. the
Based
We
on-
should probably squiggle that other one out.
Okay, yeah, squid, you can do it.
Squiggle away.
And that one, I mean, I was just thinking like Nadine feels like there's a way to put a house in there.
Something in there.
And we don't know exactly where that's gonna
Right.
be, but it's a little further up.
It's number 4.
Okay, so we have a motion we have a
Yes,
second.
second,
We had a second over
all
here.
right.
You got that? And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Liz asked a question that didn't totally get answered, and I guess it's a question for Nadine, but it's not, I guess it's the northwest
I can show you
corner.
on this map, maybe.
There's like a little bit of land.
Right.
Is there a possibility of a
Qu'est-ce que
home going there?
You
too?
know, so on one of our
Where's that?
first
Where's-
Up there,
concepts.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's on Lucas.
No,
on Lucas, frontage on Lucas.
Right there.
Or it's not
We-
really frontage, on
We
almost
looked
frontage.
at that.
It's like an
um,
island out there by itself.
Well, and that's the thing, access is not ideal.
Because
You
it's
know,
off
it
of
would
like
have
the
to be
Jaeger.
directly from Lucas.
It couldn't come
and-
from the adjoining. To the west.
It could not come from
Can't
the
come from the
Jaegers
Jaeger.
private lane.
Oh.
They have no they have no rights to that.
Right,
at
and the
all.
town just gave them more land there.
Yeah,
Which
and
could have been
because of that
access.
floodplain, like
like
different
a
from the
dollar.
Rondout Creek, how this property is like, 40 feet higher than the Rondout
Right.
Creek. In that area, there is not a lot of elevation difference between this floodplain and that area. So that is a potential flooding waiting to happen.
Floodplain,
It's
yeah,
not a
'cause it's-
potential pull off for somebody to enjoy the view.
No.
Okay.
It's a hayfield.
You mean like a viewpoint with
It's-
signs
yeah.
and
So,
okay.
okay.
Identify
I
the
like
animals that are out in the wetlands and all that kind of stuff?
So we've made the motion about the conservation and the concept sketch. So there's a couple things, again, because we couldn't make any decisions or really direction other than some conversation at the workshop. Where are we with this? Because you've looked at this and identified this, are we still needing this view shed analysis? Or has that,
I think that's changed.
because I
now.
don't think if we did a view shed analysis from the Rondout Creek and said we couldn't find these two house sites, it doesn't matter, that's not happening, so.
Right.
I don't think you.
I don't
need
think
to
you
be
need it
shared.
because of based on what.
So we
Sam
have
just
a,
did.
a request for waiver on that.
Is it
So-
on file? Is it in the file?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's in the original.
Hey, Rick, that
application.
So we
was just
would
on your
like-
number 2, though. That's where your concern was. On the number 2 lot, remember we moved that back?
Number 2 lot?
The number 2 that Sam wrote. Remember, we moved that line back? No,
No,
no.
no.
Up
The
on
one that
top,
Lauren
the
had-
number 2,
The
lot number
like-
13.
We're a lot number 13.
Yes,
now.
remember we
Right
moved
there.
that back?
We moved this
Yeah.
back.
So
Yeah,
are
That's
we
fine.
okay without having?
I'm okay with
Okay,
yeah,
Yeah, I
I
don't
think
need
that
it.
makes
With
sense.
the it's moved back a little bit.
Yeah, just move it back.
so then
Yeah.
don't
With
need
the
this.
So
waiver-
you're looking, in the original application, I mean, in the letter that
Yeah.
you sent, you were looking for the
Waiver of the view
waiver
sheds,
of the view
A
shed.
view shed
analysis.
analysis.
Based
I
on
moved
this.
to,
Let's
I
see.
moved
Based
to
on this.
wait.
There
to
you go.
I
grant-
agree.
I'm
Yeah, not
okay.
on this
I
one.
moved to grant.
Based on
the-
the information that the board has, based on the
I
resource
moved-
mapper and the site visit.
I
Sam is
move
gonna
that
move
we grant the request to waive the view shed analysis requirement of 125 L1, whatever letter that was.
Second.
I think it was above L.
Yeah, it was above
Oh, it's not in, I thought it was in the
No.
It's
LA.
125
No.
dash.
I wrote it in the
Dash is part of the
request.
12.
did.
I thought it was-
Yeah,
I'll let you find it.
Isn't it part of 125.12?
in our
Well, whatever.
original
I second that motion.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
no.
Any, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous.
Okay, and then one.
Yes, no?
Okay.
yes.
Yes, easy, yes, he said aye.
At least
And
one
the
more
other one?
thing. The waiver for the tree location, which is verbatim from the code that the board may waive tree location in the wetlands, floodplains, steep slopes, which is essentially any area not to be disturbed. So we're asking for them to grant that waiver.
The waiver where you can't disturb it anyway.
I moved
Anyway,
to
Right.
grant the
but every
waiver.
other place you're gonna,
Exactly.
I moved to grant the waiver from tree caliper analysis within all conservation areas that are outlined. We don't know what the disturbed.
all
are
areas that
yet.
are not gonna be disturbed anyway.
Well, I would limit it at this point to the conservation area,
Okay.
because we don't know what
Okay.
the limit of disturbance is.
Second,
Well, we will know the limit of disturbance.
I'm just saying at this time, I don't know that we can grant that waiver because
Right.
the new home
don't know where
sites
they're gonna
might change the
That's why I was
LOD.
asking
So I'm just saying we can grant
Yeah.
the way, I'm moving.
For the
The
conservation.
motion that I'm making, and someone can make a different motion, but the one that I'm making is to grant a waiver from tree caliper analysis within the conservation areas outlined on this sketch map.
Can you include steep slopes though, too, on steep slopes? Because we're definitely not disturbing areas
Uh,
on steep slopes.
What's the steep slope?
I thought those were
That,
steep slopes
that's
Anything
in the
dark
conservation
color.
area.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're just not in these conservation areas. We are conserving them.
I think you can certainly wait too until there's a proposed limit of disturbance, and then we could grant the full waiver.
that's-
once
No,
we-
because we gotta do it.
They have to do
We
it.
have to do it.
Right.
We gotta get the surveyor out there, so we need to give him a
Alright, so
plan.
Anything that's red, I'm comfortable with, and anything that's in the that's the motion I'm
Anything
making.
above 25%. That's fine.
Sure. All right, so I'm gonna redo it. I move to grant a waiver request from the tree caliper analysis for all areas that are within the conservation area and or which have
And.
slopes
And.
and which have slopes greater, no, it's.
And
it's
any
or.
other area.
And
where
any other
slopes are
areas where slopes are.
25% or
25% or greater.
Yes, that's my.
is that good enough, Nadine?
For
Second,
now.
For now.
Rick
I'll second it.
seconded.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Narrow down limit of disturbance.
Okay.
Thank you. And so thank you for those waivers. The traffic study. I know there was conversation. I know Liz had some comments on the traffic study. So we wanted to get clarification, as the board, whether for 14 home sites that essentially access the county
I'm-
road being Lucas Avenue, if it was something that would be
I'm gonna
required.
turn to, I don't know nothing about whether we do or we don't need it for that number of homes. Liz,
I
what's your
basically
experience?
not build, spoke to one of our traffic people and said, hey, I'm guessing that 14 single-family homes are not likely to generate enough traffic with AM and PM trips onto a county road to warrant a traffic study, and they agreed, and they also emailed me
Okay.
basically some max,
Yeah.
peak hour
You
trip
agree?
numbers that were
Yeah.
like 2 above. what
Okay,
was in
I'm
the
good.
So I
EAF,
move to grant a request for a waiver from traffic analysis on Lucas and any other, and I guess also, what is it, Rondout Lane?
Peninsula and Rondout.
Peninsula.
Well,
and
yeah,
Rondout.
certainly don't need it there, but okay. Second,
Second.
Anne Marie, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there any other waivers?
What else do you need to do?
What else, Nadine?
Okay.
That was a-
You're on a streak right now.
Well,
I hear.
So we're doing the wetlands, T and E, we're doing the
10:30, we're done.
archaeological,
10:40.
so we did the site visit.
Contact on the river.
Are we at a stage to at least declare intent to be lead agency?
Oh,
Sure.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Do we have to vote on that?
Counselor, how do I do that?
We'll have to do that. And what are we here? I don't have the EAF right in front of me.
Oh, this would be a type 1
I was gonna say it's a
because
type 1,
of, there is, I can tell you exactly why. Because of the agricultural, unfortunately,
know,
district.
Yeah.
Any unlisted action that includes a non-agricultural use occurring wholly or partially within an agricultural district, blah, 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 certified by Ag
This
and
is still in the
Markets.
ag district?
Is it certified by Ag and Mark?
It's a
Is it a-
working
It's a farm.
It's
Got a
in,
head shaker
the
over
whole
here.
thing's in the,
Ag
It
district.
is
On
in
the map.
It's in the state ag district?
Yeah.
is that on the county parcel view or
Yeah.
the AG
Yes.
3?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I
Sorry.
just want to, when I approached this initial
Bless you.
review, it was to focus on the sketch and concept aspect of things. And with the site visit coming, so I did some basic EAF comments, but I didn't get into any kind of point by
Yeah.
point. So I haven't really looked in detail at full EAF part 1.
But this is a just intent to be lead
Intent to
agency.
Yeah,
be
We're
but,
still gonna
but
do a
when you
review.
do intend to be lead agency, you have to send the whole package out with it.
Yeah.
That's the problem. When we send out our letter saying.
So
if
I
anyone
don't even
else,
feel
we
like
have
I
to send
weighed
the
in on that
package.
stuff.
All right,
yet.
so
And
if
we're
we
gonna
have to
get
wait, if we
updated-
have to wait, I'm not saying circulate the whole package.
Right.
Right, but I mean. so you do
Okay, so you
intend,
wanna
you
wait.
have to, you do that so you can circulate, you need a
Did we
package
get
to
any of these
circulate.
things?
I don't
Have
know.
gotten Many of these things. I asked for some just general reports in my comments.
Yeah, so no, so we've hired,
I think we should see this.
yeah,
I think we should wait because also, you're gonna have some new maps coming now, right? You're gonna talk to your, you also have to talk to your client to see if he wants to
well, and that's.
do this
so-
or whether he wants to go with a conventional subdivision.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I,
if we
I'm
declare
not,
an
I'm not gonna
intent to seek
encourage
lead
that,
agency,
I'm
there's
just telling you right now.
right. But if we, what would be the purpose of doing intent to seek lead agency? Because
It would
There's
just
nothing
have that
further we
30
can
day
do.
of circulation for lead agency and then.
no, but that's what I'm saying, but we need more information to send
Yeah,
to them with that.
I wasn't even gonna do the point by point. I did ballpark. I said, I'm looking at this. These are the reports I think we should see. And
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
once I
the kind
got
of thing,
those then-
we'll probably do that at around the same stage we're ready to send it to the county. We have to have enough. We
Okay.
usually do those at about the same time.
We're so close.
that being said, if you have anything to submit to the cultural resource information system, as soon as you get that going,
I don't because
you're waiting for phase 1A.
we have to mark the disturbed,
Gotcha.
proposed disturbed areas. So that's where they can do the test pits. So this is a really catch 22 for us. So
It's a
this.
circular argument.
And it's a catch 22 on the EAF too, because I would want to know.
Yeah.
Can I,
And you know what? Now that they're not gonna possibly be disturbing down there, that might save a lot of test pits.
That's true.
Thank you.
So we've identified house
These are
sites, when
at
maybe you can get back, but
That's
the next.
Do you need that? Oh, yeah, she needs those.
You know what? I think
After identifying house sites, then we identify roads, and then we put in lot lines. Okay, so we'll wait till Nadine comes back, and then we'll say, okay, here's where we're gonna draw on the roads, and then.
Sam, bring a
Sorry.
whole bunch of magic markers.
I mean,
I want you to know, this is
Can I do a
not,
couple little overlays for you to consider?
I think
I
that's.
think that would be
would
great.
be
If the-
Perfect. Do one
Especially,
just with the houses, then with the road.
Yeah,
Then with the.
yeah, because maybe we'll be in a position to do
And I
all of
think-
that at once, yeah.
That would be
creating the
great.
illusion that there's
I'm
maybe
blind.
more than one choice is helpful too.
You know, because of setbacks with other things, you know, the house is. House setbacks with the property
Right.
lines, but the septic and the wells have to have setbacks from the
From each
property
other,
lines
yeah.
and each other. So it is all tied together and we
constrained.
have to look at it.
One thing that would be just personally helpful for me is where it's constrained by things like setbacks being like highlighted and where it's unconstrained being less highlighted. Because then it feels like, you know, we can play with
But
it.
we can't share. Nobody's sharing septic.
No,
No.
which is disappointing. I understand that's not on you, but that
Yeah.
is.
That would get really
toilets or
weird.
anything like that.
This process is.
I'll accept the motion to.
Wait,
Go ahead.
I just
not
want to say, you know, we
Rick.
talked about this process last meeting and this meeting, and I know it's much different than what we're used to. I don't want you all to say, oh my God, what were they thinking? This is crazy.
No.
Because this is taken directly from state law, the way we
Yeah,
have to do it.
exactly.
This is not like some crazy thing that the town made up.
Oh, for conservation.
Yeah, for
subdivision.
conservation
Yeah.
subdivision,
It's
this
fine.
L one,
Line by
two,
line.
all that is.
I think
that's
it's,
from the
I
state.
think it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's great.
I love
It
it.
works.
Thanks,
That's-
Nadine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to, Aye, what?
Hi, we're making a.
I want
You're not gonna be happy.
quickly, I'm sorry.
Zorian's got something.
Yeah, is there any way we can limit number of subdivision applications that we consider per meeting?
No.
No,
Today we had, today we had
no,
eight.
because we have time
Thank you
limits by
guys
state
so
law
much.
on which different